It is Monday, and thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Across from me is the talented,
You keep going. You can keep going.
great co-host,
Thank you.
Carlene Bragg.
Hi, everybody.
You like those dramatic
I loved
pauses?
It. I like the drama. I like the drama. We like drama here.
Here I am. Drama is my middle name. It is good to be back. It is Monday, a fresh start to the week. So much happened over the weekend, so
Yep.
I'm glad to be back here. We're glad to be back here on this Monday. So much is happening in the world of news, and we want to bring it to you here on WCNC Plus Live Impact News. I meant to ask you, how are you doing, Carlene?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I can't complain.
Yeah.
I am. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
We're inside.
I'm inside. I did an 8K.
That's right. How
on
was your
Saturday.
8K?
I PR'd.
Good job.
Personal record, by the way.
Congratulations.
Almost a minute faster, 48 seconds faster than my 8K
Good for you.
back in December.
Good for you.
And so
Proud of
Ethan,
you.
our producer, is kind of giving me tips because I'm eyeing the Charlotte Half Marathon.
Right.
So he's giving me tips. He ran it last year, so shout out to Ethan.
Sounds like you're on the way.
I'm there. I just have to
Yeah.
build up the confidence because
Confidence. We know you as a confident man here in Live Impact News.
anytime you get over a certain mile, the longest I've run has been 9.5 miles.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of getting over
Yeah.
that mental hurdle. So I ran outside this weekend. What did you do this weekend?
I went to my little weenie dog meetup.
It was outside.
It was outside.
It was hot.
It was hot. I got a surprise for y'all. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
I've got video
Oh,
from the
big
meetup.
big turkey.
There he is. There's
The
my
Wiener
boy.
Dog Meetup. Wow.
There's
I did
about
not
30 or 40 of them out there. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
We were
man.
at Fraser Park in Uptown, and thankfully most of the park was is mostly shaded, so that was really, really nice. So we stayed out there for an hour. We didn't sweat too bad, but yeah. Isn't it cute?
It was hot it's super cute.
Thank you.
It was hot this weekend. If it was hot this weekend, it's really, really, really hot today.
Right. Right.
No,
ahead.
I just want to see him again.
Just want to see him again. One more look for the road.
If it's hot this weekend and it's really hot today, imagine what it's going to be the next few days. Meteorologist Becca Bursall is here. We're weather alert because it's so hot outside.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. This weekend was definitely hot.
I'm
We hit
feeling myself
92
now.
on Saturday, even 95 yesterday. Forecast to do 98
Yep.
today.
Ugh.
And it only gets hotter as we approach tomorrow
No.
afternoon as well. So this is where we start to talk more about the dangerous heat, especially adding in that humidity factor, what it actually feels like outside, which is why we are weather alert, like you mentioned, from Monday through Thursday with those heat index values 102 degrees or higher. So take care of yourselves, stay cool throughout the day, whatever activity that might be, and of course, stay weather alert as the 3 S words are all going to be needed for today. That UV index has been at 11 for the past several days. That is very high to extreme. Burn time close to around 10 minutes. Shaded area, and of course, stay hydrated all week long. Outside right now, it is what? 12:30. We are at 91 in Charlotte, 90 in Monroe, 93 over in Schrock, even up to 82 over in Boone, with those current heat index values feeling more like 98 in Charlotte, feeling like 100 in Statesville, Albemarle, and feeling like 101 over in Schrock. So that is a brutal, intense heat with high temperatures. Actual high temperatures today going to be in the upper 90s. Of course, that's what we're currently feeling like across much of the area, and even middle to upper 80s across the high country. We are on our heat streak where we have had 4 consecutive high temperatures of 90 degrees or above. And guess what? We've got a lot more days to add to it for this week ahead. And like I mentioned, it's even hot in the high country. They've got a forecasted high temperature in Boone of 88 degrees. That's the record high, actually, back in 1998, with the normal high for this time of year, 77, so about 10 degrees warmer than the normal high for this time of year. Hourly heat index, it's going to be feeling like the middle to upper 90s, feeling closer even to the 100s within the next few hours, which is why, again, a couple of counties have been added to a heat advisory. And a heat advisory gets issued when the heat index value is expected to be 105 or greater. So a few of our counties have been added to this, especially further off to the east. I think by the time we get into tomorrow, more of our counties will be added to this as well. Regardless, it's still hot across the area for all of us. Today, dangerous heat index values, why we are weather alert. alert. Tomorrow expected to hit 100 degrees across the Charlotte metro, and we are looking ahead towards a better chance for showers and thunderstorms by the time we get into midweek. First, let's talk about the peak heat index we're expecting over this week. Today, 104. Tomorrow we'll peak at 105, and we'll pretty much stay in the middle 100s all the way through about Wednesday, starting to go down towards the end of the work week, but not by much. Actual high temperatures will peak tomorrow near 100, but by the time we get towards the end of the work week, you'll notice highs start to go down, a little bit more seasonal for this time of year on the lower 90s. But I will say, even though those actual high temperatures go down, there is still going to be likely extra humidity and extra moisture added by the time we get into Friday and Saturday, so it's still going to be feeling like the triple digits regardless. Futurecast showing the potential of a stray shower later on today and tomorrow. Really, most locations will stay dry. I think we're looking ahead mostly towards Wednesday as this high pressure system starts to bring in a little bit more moisture, and this could very well produce scattered showers and thunderstorms from the mountains all the way into the metro, starting the midday hours, continuing through the evening and nighttime. And we have been added under a low severe weather risk by the Storm Prediction Center. This is mainly going to be an isolated storm possible that could produce some strong to damaging wind gusts. Of course, we'll be tracking those showers and storms in real time and on WCNC Plus. Checking in on the tropics. It has been a quiet start to the Atlantic hurricane season. Typically, we see our first named storm form around June 20th. Of course, it is June 23rd, and we have not had our first named storm yet. But the National Hurricane Center has tagged this area way off the Carolina coast. This is mainly over towards the central Atlantic, about 600 miles east of Bermuda, and it's tagged this area of disturbance for potential tropical cyclone development, especially within the next 24 hours. So we could see a tropical depression form later on today, but as this continues to push up to the northeast, it's got a less favorable environment, if you will, more wind shear, cooler waters. So we'll have to watch and see if this becomes our first named storm of the season, which would be Andrea. Random weather stat for today. Chris Mulcahy put this together. 45 Charlotte summers have hit 100 degrees or above. 2024 was one of them, of course, back in July. That was the last time we hit 100 degrees. And the percent of summers hitting 100 degrees or above is about 31%. And the average date of those happening is July 11th. And actually, the earliest date that we have seen 100 degrees was June 3rd, back in 1895. So if we do hit 100 degrees tomorrow, we're going to be a little bit ahead of that summer heat schedule in this 7-day forecast. A lot of icks in this coming week ahead. Better storm chances likely coming between Wednesday and Thursday. Other than that, just a stray shower in the forecast. By the time we get into Friday and Saturday, I know it looks like we'll see some relief from that intense heat, but I can promise you that humidity is going up towards the end of the work week, so it's still going to be feeling just as hot out there.
You read my mind. See, look, this is becoming a thing. Nick's picks and Nick's icks. So I will tell you today through Thursday are icks.
Yes, I agree with you.
With weather alert.
Big icks.
Criteria, weather alert, storms. And I just want folks to be safe. So if I could put an ick out there, make sure folks, do the proper things when they're outside.
Sure.
I'm taking a lot of credit.
I
I just realized
Sure
I had an outer body experience just now. I'm like,
You're like, I gotta calm down.
Yeah, I gotta calm down. I'm taking a lot of credit right now. But saying all to say is an egg. So
Great.
All right.
Yep.
3 for 3.
3 for 3.
3 for 3.
3 for 3.
Based on my
some imaginary stat.
Oh, here you go.
I love it. I love it.
It's only Monday, y'all.
I love your stats.
Becca, we'll see you a little later. Thank you
Sounds
for
good.
your time. All right, so that's the weather. It's hot. Make sure you do all the things. I know we say this time and again, but make sure you're safe out there.
Water, sunscreen,
hat.
sunglasses. I walked outside without my sunglasses.
Yeah.
It was too bright.
The portable fans,
Portable
too.
fans.
All the things. So just make sure that you're doing and even protect the pets too. Make
Yes.
sure
Oh,
that
very
they
much
are
so.
protected, and you're keeping them safe. All right, let's go to West Virginia. So happening live right now, the Department of Homeland Security is visiting Custom and Border Protection's Advanced Training Center in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, participating in a ribbon cutting ceremony of the new Monarch Hall. In addition, the Secretary Kristi Noem The ceremony will include Senator Shelley Moore Capito, Representative Riley Moore, and U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials. Let's take a listen in to what's being said right now.
Covered, but what it really had to do, like I talked about that cascading effect, right, was an organization that had literally been taught to not accept failure. And that's really what happened here at ATC. Different parts of the organization came together, but the culture in CBP, because of the investments we've made here, because of the investments you guys have made, because of your leadership, is an organization that while I was a policy advisor, while I was the chief of the Border Patrol, or now as commissioner, brings me a little synopsis of a problem that they discovered and the solution. And it's already moving forward. If I want to change it, I can, but it doesn't wait for other people to tell them what to do. Everybody in this organization has foundational principles of vigilance, service to their country, and integrity that we beat into them from day one. We beat into them here at ATC. And I think that just creates a culture that every American will be proud of. I'm very proud of what you guys do here. I just want to say thank you, and I'll close with that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. Our next speaker is the Honorable Shelley Moore Capito, U.S. Senator from West Virginia. Senator Capito, a West Virginian through and through, has had a distinguished career of promoting excellence in West Virginia, be it through higher education or in the public sector. As former chairwoman and ranking member, and now current majority member of the Senate Homeland Security Appropriations Subcommittee, we appreciate Senator Capito's commitment to understanding what we do along the U.S. border and beyond, and for supporting our mission. We are again very thankful to have her help in securing the funding for this project when she was chairwoman. Without further ado, let's welcome Senator Capito.
Well, thank you very much for the warm introduction, and I am so happy to have the Cabinet Secretary here, who I call Christy, because we served together for 4 years and we've known each other. She's an excellent governor in her home state of South Dakota, and just a really warm, as you can tell, very warm and dedicated and great family person as well. So it was fun for us to fly out and do some catching up to do. Rodney I met out in California when he was the sector chief out there, and I cannot tell you how excited I was when I saw that he was going to be the nominee for this position. He knows that. I was going to ask you, when did you start your training? 1992. Things have changed since 1992. And think about it. He's seen probably a lot of different things. So he knows, I mean, I think there's nothing better than a person to lead an organization that knows the organization, knows what it's like to be that first trainee when you're first trying to get your feet wet, knows what it means to be probably assigned to a place you really don't want to go. How do you explain to your family, but also the different problems that are coming across the desk or out in the field. So, Rodney, congratulations on your nomination. You're right, confirmation's not easy to go through, but you have a great mentor here. She's just terrific. Great to be here with Congressman Riley Moore, who is my nephew. And so I was thinking about all the people that I've known so long. I've probably known him, I definitely have known him longer than anybody else. 1980, July 1st, yes. He's first grandchild in our family, so it was a big joyous day, but I'm so proud of what he's doing here. He lives right here in Harpers Ferry, which really makes a difference. But Riley's, as the Secretary said, he's a star and he's going to do well. We're both on appropriations, which is kind of a nice tag team situation in terms of being in the Senate, being in the House, so we have constant communication as well. I will bring back to Senator Katie Britt, who chairs that committee. She said, thanks a lot for leaving that. I went to a very non-controversial committee to chair, Health, Education, and Labor. Woo! I might come back to Homeland Security. Yeah, Homeland Security is looking maybe a little bit easier now. But anyway, this facility is fantastic. We've been out here more than a few times. We brought a staff retreat out here several years ago so we could see really on the ground what occurs at this facility. And as a West Virginian, you know, my frame of reference, different than these guys, is that West Virginia frame of reference. It's great to have everybody have a touch of West Virginia when they come here, but it's the economic opportunity that the center brings to this region of West Virginia. Many of the folks who teach here and work here are now native West Virginians and live here. And so for us, this is just an incredible facility to watch it grow. And the Monarch Hall is, I was trying to think, is the Monarch butterfly our state butterfly? I think it is. It is. All right. I didn't win the Golden Horseshoe contest, but that's our West Virginia history contest. But anyway, I thought that's our state butterfly. I don't know. Does South Dakota have a state butterfly?
They migrate through South Dakota.
Okay, there we go. There we go. That's how we got it. Yeah. But anyway, so I'm really proud. When I think about what's coming across the border, I mean, really, I can't say enough praise for President Trump and the Secretary and what they've been able to accomplish in the last 5 or 6 months. It takes a will, an incredible will, a steel will, to move forward in an aggressive manner, to be able to make the changes as much as they can without Congress acting, to be able to really change the face of particular southern border. Our state of West Virginia is particularly affected by the fentanyl that comes over and across the border. We know our fellow West Virginians, we've lost too many to the scourge of fentanyl. Family members, church members, neighbors. It knows no boundaries, no economic boundaries. Nobody. I can tell you, my daughter went to high school in Charleston. She's lost probably 15 people. She's 39 right now. 15 people in and around her age group, either a year above her, her year, or the year below, in that one single high school to the overdose of fentanyl. I mean, that's just unbelievable. It's horrifying. So that is a challenge that we want to make sure that the Border Patrol is ready to meet the challenge. The technology is evolving huge here. And lastly, I'll say this. I'm getting a lot of kudos for bringing $32 million, which is pretty good. Senator Byrd would be very happy with that. But you have to remember, this is our money coming back to us. This is not my money, or honestly, don't tell President Trump, it's not the president's money. It is our money coming back to where our priorities are. As the Secretary said, we set our priorities and that reflects who we are. And so to have the training that we have here, to be able to have so many people touch West Virginia and be a part of West Virginia and always have a bit of West Virginia left in their heart, no matter where they go across this country, is a great thing for somebody who is a native West Virginian and loves it like we all love our home states. So thank you so much for coming out today. It's been remarkable that you would take the time. I was kind of fully waiting for her to cancel because of all of the other things that are going on. But I will see the best decision, besides the Secretary coming here, is whoever made the decision to not have this outside. Now, that shows you how smart everybody is here at the training center, because off that pavement, it'd be 100. Over 100 degrees probably. Anyway, I'm so proud of everybody. Thank you, and let's keep up the good work and make sure that we do as we want, and that's securing our borders and making sure that we can have that American way of life that we all love and cherish. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Senator Capito. Our next guest is one of the newest members of Congress who represents West Virginia's 2nd Congressional District, the Honorable Riley Moore. So far during his tenure in the U.S. House of Representatives, Congressman Moore has worked tirelessly to further our nation's border security objectives. We appreciate his ongoing collaboration to keep America safe and his commitment to the President's objectives of keeping our borders secure and strong. We look forward to growing in our partnership with you, especially as the representative of this congressional district. Thank you for joining us today. And now, please help me welcome Congressman Riley Moore.
Thank you very much. Feels like I was just here because I just was. I got to put on glasses. My aunt makes fun of me because I'm getting old. I got to wear glasses now. It's the way of the world. But no, it's great to be here. And Senator Capito was just touching on the effects of the border in West Virginia before I get into my prepared remarks. This is just last May, 2 miles from here, an illegal immigrant killed somebody in our community and burned her body. Just 2 miles from right here. in West Virginia. It's really hard to believe, so it feels like every state is a border state, to be honest with you, with the effects that it's having on everybody. But on that somber note, I do want to say it's a pleasure to be back here at the CBP Advanced Training Center, to be part of Monarch Hall. That is kind of a tongue twister. Monarch Hall ribbon cutting. This new facility is crucial to expanding the good work of the CBP that's been ongoing here in West Virginia. I'd like to also start by thanking the hardworking men and women of Customs and Border Protection who work with little recognition sometimes. Certainly from my office they get that, but sometimes in the public they do not, and they very much deserve it for keeping our nation safe. So thank you all very much. I also want to extend my gratitude to Senator Capito, Aunt Shelley, who has used her position on the Appropriations Committee to secure this funding for this great facility that we have here. And I'm so proud to be the only freshman member of the House Appropriations Committee. And I look forward to working with the Senator and you all here at the Advanced Training Center to further expand and continue the mission. I'm also grateful, so grateful for Secretary Noem for being in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Thank you so very much. I live 5 minutes from here. Somebody told me last month.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sertovan. Right now you're watching a Department of Homeland Security press conference there in West Virginia as they did tour and they did visit and they are visiting a Custom and Border Protections Advanced Training Center there in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. All right, so we want to shift away from that and we want to come back here home. So Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, which ended the school year as far as classes about a week ago, is holding a year-end press conference. The superintendent, also leaders within CMS, will talk about the achievements, the benchmarks, and sort of the information. Think of it as a year-end wrap-up. A report card for the school year. And so we have a reporter there hoping to add some more questions regarding what has happened as late as far as, for example, Audrey Kell and other incidents involving CMS there. She's there at their press conference. So hopefully we get to hear more information regarding that. So again, we want to tune in right now to this press conference. That is Superintendent Dr. Hill, Crystal Hill there with CMS. Let's take a listen in.
Preview of the 25-26 school year. At our news conference this time last year, I described our 5-year strategic plan as both ambitious and realistic and explained that doing the work outlined in the plan would result in unprecedented levels of excellence without exception in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools if we lead with courage and commit to getting 1% better every day. I would be surprised if you could find any employee or student in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools who would say they haven't been asked to do something ambitious this past school year. And I would also think each of those people would also say that our students are better off thanks to their amazing efforts. We appreciate you, our media partners, and your engagement in helping us share Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools news and information with our community. As there are more highlights than we have time to share in today's briefing, please take a look at the handout we've provided you. It includes even more pillars of excellence and celebration for the 24-25 school year. I will now turn it over to Deputy Superintendent Dr. Melissa Balknight, who will share more information about our progress in learning and teaching this year and what is to come.
Thank you, Dr. Hill, and good afternoon. As we reflect on this incredible school year, we are filled with pride, gratitude, and a renewed sense of purpose. This has been a year defined by academic excellence, innovation, and endless possibilities for our students. To date, we have celebrated the graduation of 9,898 students, each one representing a unique story of resilience, growth, and achievement. Our seniors have earned an astounding $97.9 million in scholarships, opening doors to higher education and bright futures. Academic excellence is not just a goal in CMS, it's a lived reality. This year, 11,621 high school students took on the challenge of college-level advanced placement courses. 289 graduates have completed their associate's degree while still in high school, exemplifying what is possible when ambition meets reality. Our career and technical education students have demonstrated excellence in real-world readiness, earning over 6,900 industry-recognized credentials. Meanwhile, 82% of our 8th and 10th grade students have completed their career interest profiles, and 89% of our students in grades 8 through 11 have begun planning their futures in our digital platform. These tools are more than digital resources. They are launching pads for students' dreams. We're equally proud of how our students excel beyond the classroom. CMS students have distinguished themselves at the state, national, and international levels, earning state championships and bringing home accolades that highlight both their academic and extracurricular strengths. As we continue to support the whole child, 12 CMS schools are named Capturing Kids' Hearts National Showcase Schools. 20 schools reach Rising Star status for fostering strong relationships and positive school culture. This speaks volumes about the work our educators do every day in the classroom to build not just scholars, but compassionate, empowered young people. We celebrate the arts as well. 3 CMS students received Bloomie Awards, a reminder that excellence in education includes excellence in creativity, performance, and expression. In the world of Charlotte-Mecklenburg School sports, our teams won 30 individual and state championships, including the Audrey Kell women's soccer team, West Charlotte's football team, and North Mecklenburg men's basketball team. CMS was also recognized as an academically promising district, one of only 13 districts in North Carolina to receive this honor, affirming our commitment to gifted education. Our magnet programs continue to shine, with 9 schools receiving Magnet Schools of America Merit Awards. This, along with the 10,000 8th grade students who attended the Endless Possibilities Choice Fair, shows the growing impact of our innovative student-centered programs. These milestones are not isolated achievements. They are the result of the tireless work of our educators, the support of our families, and most importantly, the potential of our students. As we close this year, let us not just reflect, but celebrate the academic excellence that defines Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. The future is bright, and together we are preparing our students not just for what's next, but for what's possible. At this time, I'll introduce Chief Beth Thompson, Chief of Strategy and Innovation.
Good afternoon. This time last year, we were sharing with you a long list of amazing things that had taken place in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools during the 2023-24 school year. Things like passing a historic $2.5 billion bond to build 30 new or replacement schools, launching a bold 5-year goal and strategic plan to guide our work, receiving a fully funded budget from the Mecklenburg County Board of County Commissioners for the 2nd year in a row. Thank you, Board of County Commissioners. Creating school performance areas to better support our schools, building new project management systems to track progress and stay focused, and the list goes on and on. And the results? Students made gains in proficiency, college and career readiness, and growth. In fact, in the 2023-24 school year, students met or exceeded growth in every content area that the state measures. And with new 5-year goals and guardrails beginning in this past year, the 24-25 school year, goals and guardrails that reflect the vision and values of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg community, our work couldn't stop. In fact, it needed to get even better. We are thrilled and proud of the incredible progress we've made this year for our students. Our first year of implementing the 5-year strategic plan has been a resounding success. Here's what we focused on and accomplished, our big 5 for student success. Pay better, competitive pay to attract and keep great teachers. Train smarter, fast, effective training to grow strong educators. Keep our talent, support and value teachers so they stay in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. Safe and welcoming schools, clean, secure, and caring environments for students and staff. And top tech tools, modern technology for students and teachers. Now, I would imagine at this point, you're probably thinking, that's great that you all did all that, but did it work? Did outcomes change for students? And those of you who've been around a while probably know what I'm going to say. The data is embargoed until the state makes it official in September. But I can say this. Mark your calendars for September 3rd, the date that the state has set to officially release 24-25 school year data. Doing the right work with excellence pays off in unprecedented ways. I sure am excited to see you in September. But here's what we can say now. There's some key levers from our annual plan this past year that we're confident made a difference for our students this year. Together, we want to tell you a little bit about them. The first three are focused on teachers. First, we said we have to pay our teachers better in a way that allows us to recruit the quality teachers that we need. With the drive and support from our Chief Human Resource Officer, Dr. Keisha Cohn, and Chief Financial Officer, Kelly Klutz, we're able to demonstrate our commitment to paying staff better. Again, in the 24-25 school year, we've implemented phase 1 of the classified compensation study, and the board will be voting on schedules for phase 2 later this week. We've modernized and reduced organizational risk by building and launching a new financial system. Note, this does not include human resources and payroll yet. We created a Total Rewards website located right on the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools website so that current and future staff members know all the benefits of being employed by Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, tripling access and engagement in just 6 months. And for the 3rd year in a row, Mecklenburg County Board of County Commissioners fully funded the 25-26 budget, which includes an assumed 3% raise for staff. Again, thank you, Mecklenburg County. But in addition to paying teachers better, we also know we have to train and develop those teachers faster and better, getting the very best teachers in front of our students for the most days possible. Nancy Brightwell, Chief Retention, Recruitment, and Talent Development Officer, will share just a few of the countless highlights in our work around training and developing teachers this past year. Nancy?
Thank you, Chief Thompson.
Thank you, Chief Thompson. New this year, we've taken a strategic approach on all aspects of teacher recruitment and retention, reimagining everything from how we attract new teachers to the way we keep them and recognize their accomplishments. To start, we revamped our systems for attracting and hiring new teachers. We've seen dramatic results in a short amount of time. For the 24-25 school year, we started the year with 276 vacancies. That's down from 516 the previous year. And we were able to continue to fill vacancies throughout the school year to achieve and maintain a 99% fill rate in 8 of the 9 months of the school year. We've modernized our recruitment technology, investing in promising pipelines like Growing Your Own, all while using data to shift resources from low return investments to high impact strategies. While we've updated and streamlined our recruiting strategies, we've continued to have strong representation at our annual career fair. In fact, we welcomed 1,300 attendees this spring. We haven't seen those numbers since before the pandemic. The results of these efforts are currently, we have 97% of our teaching positions for the upcoming 25-26 school year already filled. As we work to fill teacher vacancies, we also work on training those teachers who are new to CMS to be successful in our classrooms faster and better. Our best-in-class CMS teacher residency program often attracts second career adults to our district and provides a pathway for them to become fully licensed teachers. We had 180 candidates complete the program in 24-25, and they're now teaching in our schools. And we've enrolled 300 candidates for the 25-26 school year. This will be our biggest class ever. 100%. That's more than 1,300 teachers hired in 24-25 received new teacher training through our Crown Academy. These efforts have resulted in...
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right there is a end-of-year news conference CMS is holding. So again, think of this as a report card for the year, benchmarks that they are acknowledging within the school district. We want to shift away from that for just a moment. We want to get to some breaking news. And I'm reading you sort of a blog that NBC News has on its website, and it states, and I want to give you a live look. This is Qatar, a live look at Qatar. So according to NBC News, as it writes, Iranian state TV says operation has been launched against U.S. base in Qatar. Iranian state television network IRIB reports that an operation has been launched against the U.S. is based there in Qatar. Now, NBC News is saying that it has not verified news of the strike. And just about 20 minutes before we got this breaking update, we got another update. According from NBC News, Qatar had temporarily suspended air traffic in its airspace to, quote, ensure the safety of citizens, residents, and visitors. And that was according to Qatar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Also goes on to say, quote, this is part of a set of precautionary measures taken in response to developments in the region, according to Qatar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Quote, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs affirms that official authorities are continuously monitoring the situation closely and are assessing developments in coordination with regional and international partners. Again, that was about 23 minutes ago. The latest update we got, again, this is from Iranian state television network IRIB, and it's reporting that there's an operation that has been launched against the U.S. base there in Qatar. I do want to reiterate, NBC News has not verified the news of the strike. We're going to keep an eye on this developing situation. This comes after this weekend when President Trump claims that the U.S. obliterated Iran's nuclear sites over the weekend. So again, this is a story that continues to develop there in the Middle East. We're going to keep an eye on that as more information comes in to our newsroom and through our feed. So again, a developing story there that we're continuing to closely monitor. All right. And we're going to keep that a live shot of Qatar at the bottom of your screen, but we want to get back now to that press conference here at home, CMS holding its end of year press conference. Let's take a listen in.
For students. This past year, every single school, all 186, had at least one significant top 3 partnership need met. Thank you, partners. And in addition to partners, volunteers have poured so much time and energy into supporting our school environments. Over 10,800 volunteers supported a Charlotte-Mecklenburg school this year, logging approximately 146,000 volunteer hours and providing services in the gift of their time that have a dollar value of almost $5 million. Thank you, volunteers. 12 schools were named Capturing Kids' Hearts National Showcase Schools, a recognition that reflects schools implementing tremendous practices to build culture and lead with heart. An additional 20 schools received Rising Star status in their first year of implementation. And in 24-25, we opened 2 beautiful new schools, Knightsview Elementary School and Ballantyne Ridge High School, and 1 replacement school, Bruns Avenue Elementary School. And we know we have to have the best technologies for our students and our teachers to use in instruction. Dr. Candace Salmon-Hosey, Chief Technology Officer, will share highlights in ensuring safe student and staff access to technology. Chief Salmon-Hosey.
Thank you, Chief Thompson. And good afternoon to everyone. Over the past year, Technology Services has worked hard on 3 important areas that I would like to share with you today. The first area is making sure students and teachers have the devices they need. Thanks to our county commissioners, last year we received $4 million in funding. And because of that, we were able to deploy brand new devices for our 6th and 9th grade students. This upcoming year, we've been allocated $2 million. Although less than anticipated, we have a great plan moving forward to make sure we stretch our dollars to provide students with updated devices. The second area of focus is that our data is correct, safe, and private. This addresses To address this target, we strengthened our cybersecurity presence and our ability to respond to threats. This included testing our systems to protect staff and student-sensitive data. Along with that, CMS has done extensive work to prepare for the statewide transition from PowerSchool to the new student information system called Infinite Campus. This project included updating family contact information, preparing new online registration forms, and training staff so that all schools are fully prepared to launch the new system. Finally, our third focus area ensures that staff are prepared to embrace AI in an effective and responsible way. We are proud that CMS is leading the way nationally in how public school systems approach artificial intelligence. At our recent AI Data Privacy Summit, we officially launched our AI vision and guiding principles. In alignment with CMS's 4 pillars of excellence, this shared vision was shaped by feedback from more than 10,000 students, families, educators, and community members through a district-wide survey and engagement sessions. In the upcoming year, we will be implementing a phased-in training approach to make sure all staff have the foundational understanding of AI literacy. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Chief Thompson.
Thank you so much. Our strategic work will continue in the 25-26 school year. In the 2025-26 annual plan, currently on our district website, you will see continuity between what we accomplished in 24-25 and next step work and improvement in 25-26. We'll be focusing on getting even better at using continuous improvement to identify what students need even faster so that we can address those needs as quickly as possible. In short, we're going to keep getting better and better, continuous improvement for endless possibilities. I now turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Crystal Hill, to share closing thoughts.
I am so proud of the work that has happened in the 24-25 school year, and I am very excited about what is to come. I, along with our leadership team, am extremely grateful for the support of our community, families, and partners in education, because we know that when we work together, we can create endless possibilities that
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Serter. Right there, you're watching a end-of-year news conference by Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District. On the bottom of your screen, we promised this earlier, but this is a shot courtesy of Reuters. This is of Skyline there in Qatar. And so this is from moments ago. This is not live, but this shot.
I might have just blacked out, so let's give it a second.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that was a playback.
Okay. It was shots from a moment ago. Because we came in here earlier with some breaking news from Iranian state television network IRIB, reporting that an operation had been launched against the U.S. Its air base in Qatar. Again, NBC News has not verified news of this strike, but again, that is the breaking news at this moment. And as soon as we get more information, we will be sure to pop right back in here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. But we want to go back now to the press conference.
We apologize it's chugging in points, but if you just hang on for a few seconds, it should update itself.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of signal issue, but it is happening right now. So let's listen in to what's being said right now. It appears they're taking questions.
Kell High School, and had some questions about the situation there. We know the suspension of Principal Brooks.
So we're going to be addressing questions related to the topics that were discussed today. If you have questions that are related to other issues, you can put those through the media mailbox.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Pierre?
No, thanks. Dr. Hill, in terms of talking about the test scores and everything, if you got rid of the the makeup attendance policies, and how can a child that is able to come back, misses 15%, 20% of a semester, 15, 18, 20 days, how are they able to get back and able to get where they need to be if they're missing all that time when you got rid of the makeup policies?
Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools changed the attendance policy to be in line with the North Carolina State Board of Education attendance policy.
So what does it say about the instruction or the preparation of that particular class if they're missing 20 days and they're able to still pass it?
If students are able to complete the work and receive a passing grade, attendance cannot be the reason for a student not passing the grade. That was the change. So previously, you could have a student that had an A average, but because they missed an arbitrary number of days, they would automatically fail the course. So that was the change in the attendance policy. It is certainly not to say that student attendance is not important, because it certainly it is. So that was the change in the policy.
Right here. Hi, Chief Brightwell, you said that 97% of all teacher vacancies have already been filled for the upcoming academic year. I'm wondering how CMS will make room for the teachers who no longer have a job after the closing of Niner University Elementary.
Thank you for that question. We have met. Our talent acquisition team was out there for about a half a day right after that announcement was made to facilitate supporting any one of those employees who would choose to come to work for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools.
Right here.
Hello, Alex Sands Axios. I have two questions kind of big related to AI. But I want to ask first from the teacher end, are you guys seeing students? And then from the student end, are you guys thinking at all about the way that the workforce is going to change with AI and preparing the students for that?
Thank you for that question. And with those two questions, I would like to introduce and bring up to the panel Rebecca Leitonen. She's our Executive Director of Educational Technology, and she is leading the AI initiative for our district. So Rebecca?
Thank you so much for those questions. The first question around helping teachers. So this year we're looking at a phased-in training approach. So we're looking at launching a network of AI champion schools, and those teachers and educators and leaders at those schools will set the way for the scaling it to the district in the next year. So we're taking a look at use cases with those AI champion schools and really creating the blueprint so we can see how teachers can free up the time and really focus on what really matters in working with students. Taking a look at the operational efficiencies, communication with parents, and really streamlining all of those tasks that take up so much of our time so we can really pour that back into our students. The second question around how student use. So we want our students to be prepared for the workforce, and we want to empower them in ways that they can use AI to really enhance their learning. The focus not really on misuse, but how can we take it to empower our students for what's next and really be ready for whatever comes their way. And so we're doing that through our digital citizenship and AI literacy curriculum. We've redesigned our K-12 curriculum to launch in August to include those AI literacy components so that they are ready to go and are able to take their learning to the next level.
Hi, my name is Bria Smith with the WCNC. Glad to be here with you all. I have two questions, one regarding the importance of pouring into teachers. Obviously that retention and the coaching was something that kind of stood out for me, just the significance of making sure that teachers are prepared to assist students throughout the next school year. And then also I know you all just recently had a school bus driver fair, so kind of the state of that, and are you hopeful for just having enough bus drivers for the upcoming school year?
I'll speak to the just the significance of retention and coaching teachers. We obviously put a high priority on developing our teachers and ensuring that anyone who's interested in coming to Charlotte-Mecklenburg knows that from the minute that they choose CMS as their employee, we're going to pour into them. We're going to help them to grow, to be as effective as possible. In fact, we last year launched Crown Academy, as I mentioned, which increased our onboarding, where we're bringing in and orienting our new educators from a 3-day experience to an 11-day experience. So from the very beginning, we want to make sure that they're well prepared in order to be difference makers for our students.
Tim, do you want to speak about the drivers, an update?
Absolutely. Tim Ivey, Chief Operations Officer. We started our bus searching for bus drivers quite early in the summer as an effort to continue to make sure that we have those positions filled. And at this time, we're not really seeing a dramatic bus driver shortage, but we are always recruiting and looking for people that are wanting and willing to be part of the CMS family and help us with transporting students back and forth to school.
Does anybody else have a first round question before we start second round? Okay.
Dr. Hill, I know you guys talked about pay increases and stuff like that and teacher retention. Some people were surprised that you asked for, what, 2.8, 3% from the county increase for teachers' salaries. Was there a reason why it wasn't more than that? Did someone from the county, be it Dina or whomever, tell you the money just won't be there if you ask for more?
Well, whenever you're working on a budget, you always have an idea of what you're working with. So we learned that through several ways. The first signal that we received was at our joint meeting that we had in January. It was a joint meeting that's an annual meeting between the Board of County Commissioners and the school board. And during that time, we had an opportunity to share highlights of our previous school year's data, as well as our 5-year financial forecast. The county during that time shared what their current revenue projections were and what they were looking at in terms of their overall budget. Then shortly after that time, during the county commissioners' retreat, they instructed staff to cut, I can't remember the number, is it 14 million or so out of their current budget. So, and don't quote me on that number, but it was double-digit millions. So at that point, we had an idea of what we would be able to go in terms of what our need was. In terms of what specifically we asked for an average for teacher supplement based on what we had done in previous years, knowing that our teachers clearly are not paid enough, but it will always be my recommendation to this Board of Education to increase the teacher supplement. So the goal is that each year we take another chunk and another chunk and another chunk to get ultimately where we could potentially be.
Any other questions?
How many teacher vacancies are there actually now?
Currently, we have 414 classroom teacher vacancies.
Anything else? All right, we want to thank you again for coming. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the use of AI again. There's been a lot of studies coming out recently around the lack of critical thinking that's needed to use AI, and I'm wondering if any new policies will go into effect for the upcoming academic year to limit the use of AI in classrooms.
So with looking at students or even staff use with AI, we still want our students to develop those critical thinking skills, creative thinking skills, and not use AI to potentially just create content, but to enhance their learning. So how can we use AI to help with homework or prompt questions to get better or explain a complex something that they're learning, like complex calculus or something, help with tutoring or help with enhancing whatever work they're working on, not that creation piece. So we still are focusing on having our students engage in all of those critical thinking skills. And as we think about what that looks like in lessons when we work with our AI champion schools this year, it will be taking a look at different levels of use. So it's more of a continuum of how we're saying students can use it for this assignment, no use at all. Maybe for this assignment, they can use it to enhance or proofread or give suggestions potentially. So it's really looking at that continuum of use, not just a yes or no when they're looking at assignments. So right now, students we know that they're using it, like at home. They're not able to access it within our network. But we're looking at publishing a guidance document for staff and students this coming August, and it will include those areas for when they can use it and when they can't.
I'd just like to make another comment about AI, if that's okay. So one of the questions that was asked earlier in terms of AI and how it's part of our workforce, we are really trying to focus more not on don't use it, don't use it, don't use it. Because the reality is when they graduate and they leave us, employers are going to.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. You're watching CMS as it holds its end-of-year news conference there. That's happening live. And it looks like this is about to wrap up. They're finishing answering questions that is Superintendent Dr. Crystal Hill answering questions. All right, I want to come back on camera. Some breaking news right now that we continue to follow of reports that Iran launched missiles toward U.S. bases in Qatar. We want to actually go now to an NBC special report that's happening right now. They give you a little bit more context on what's happening and what they're covering, reports coming out of Qatar. Let's take a listen into that special report happening right now.
It's a message for the White House. I'm not sure the Qataris will see the distinction necessarily reading their statement that they just released, Tom.
Yeah, no, I hear you there, Keir. I do want to bring in Jeremy Bash. Now, Jeremy, I'm sure you heard Keir's reporting there. How do you interpret sort of the statements coming out of Iran tonight? And what do you think President Trump does next?
Well, Iran has a domestic audience. They want to show their own people that they're responding to Operation Midnight Hammer, which was the Trump administration's attack on 3 nuclear sites over the weekend. I think if no U.S. forces are injured and we intercepted all of the incoming missiles, either at Qatar or in other locations, then I think President Trump has a tough decision on his hands. He can kind of step back and say, look, we don't want to have a back and forth. We want to get to the negotiating table. You didn't hurt any of our people. Let's talk. Or he could use military force to go after other targets, other ballistic missile targets inside Iran. He could even go a step farther and target regime targets, target the supreme leader, target defense leaders. He could kind of not waste the crisis and say, hey, you attacked us. I told you not to. You crossed the red line. We're going hard into your country. So I think the president and his team are obviously calibrating this at this hour. A lot is going to depend on what the battle damage assessment is with respect to how much damage these incoming rocket, artillery, and mortar pieces did at U.S. bases, not just at Al Udeid, but potentially in Iraq, potentially in Bahrain, potentially in Kuwait, and potentially in the UAE. We've got forces all over the region. And just because Iran fired here tonight and they said, this was successful, doesn't mean we can relax. Our force posture is going to be very aggressive. We're going to watch this, and probably there are going to be private messages sent between us and Iran through European powers, through other powers, to basically say, knock it off. If you do this again and you hurt any of our people, this is what the U.S. would say to Iran, we're going to go after you hard.
40,000 U.S. troops in the region there. Jeremy, I do also want to remind our viewers that NBC News had reported that Iran had threatened a terror attack on the homeland here in the U.S. while the president was at the G7 summit in Canada now. And the U.S. obviously can't sort of stop with that defensive posture here in the U.S. as well, because that is another potential, a lone wolf attack or a sleeper cell that pops up.
That's right. And as you know, Tom, U.S. officials have been targeted for assassination by Iranian agents after the U.S. killed off the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps leader Qasem Soleimani in 2019. Several U.S. officials involved in that, including military and diplomatic leaders, were specifically targeted by Iran. Iran has the capability to unleash terrorism, unleash Hezbollah or other Shia militia groups as they reconstitute, not just against U.S. forces in the region, but also against American diplomatic facilities, against maybe American businesses, other American enterprises. And here in the homeland, obviously we have to be concerned about small teams, teams of assassins, teams, sleeper cells, teams of terrorists who have made their way into the country. They don't have to be Iranian. These could be teams that Iran has paid. They could be even criminal gangs, people to make money off of kind of terror for hire operations. And we've already seen several threats, terrorist attacks against Jewish organizations, against embassy staff here in Washington. There was a shooting a few weeks ago of 2 Israeli embassy staff. And so the threat landscape in the United States is very, very dangerous at this hour.
Okay, Jeremy, you stand by for us. I'm going to go back to Gabe at the White House. Gabe, I know you just got an update.
Hi there, Tom. Well, the president's still monitoring all this from the Situation Room as far as we know, and no update directly from White House officials. But something I did want to point out, Tom, is that several hours before this attack unfolded, the U.S. Embassy in Qatar had issued a shelter-in-place notice. Now, that raises the question, is it possible that the Qatari government in some way may have had advance notice of the attack? Let's be very clear. We do not know if that's the case, but it does raise the question if Iran may have notified some of the other countries in the region ahead of this attack. The White House is still monitoring the extent of this, whether there may be any injuries or the extent of the damage to any U.S. assets in the region. But it is curious that several hours before this attack unfolded, the U.S. Embassy in Qatar did already put out a shelter-in-place notice, so perhaps trying to minimize injuries, Tom.
8:30 at night in Qatar right now, 1:30 here in the East Coast. I do want to go back to Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel, who is live for us in Tel Aviv. Richard, I know you have new reporting out of Qatar, but also after that, update our viewers about what's happening in Israel right now and if anything has happened there tonight.
So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Qatar just put out a statement calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities by all parties and a return to the negotiating table. So they would like to see this over. They want all parties to stop and to resume a diplomatic process. But you asked about Israel. Israel just overnight has begun to change what it is targeting in Iran. There was an Israeli strike confirmed by the Ministry of Defense here that Israel struck the Evin prison in Tehran. Israel's attacking what it describes as tools of Iranian repression. They also targeted the Basij offices and headquarters. Now, the Basij are a military force that the Iranian government, the Iranian theocracy, has used for domestic repression. So when you take them together, they also attacked a police headquarters. They are taking away the Iranian abilities, Iran's ability to maintain law and order at home. And that is a different kind of attack. You're not just attacking their ability to project power, their missile sites. Israel is still doing that as well on a daily basis, attacking their missiles, missile launchers, aircraft, helicopters. Israel also this morning attacking the entry route to the Fordow military facility. But different this time, attacking the domestic agencies that keep the regime in power.
Richard, you know, we've been able to get sort of a snapshot of Iran's modern military strategy, if you will, over the last year, going back to that drone strike there in Israel, and then the statements that came out after that. Seeing tonight what's happened so far, Richard, seeing what Iran has put out so far, what sort of are you reading from the tea leaves? And again, this is combat. It could change at any moment, but what are you seeing tonight?
This seems to be a relatively limited response by Iran. It seems to be a response that Iran would have known would be largely unsuccessful. It is firing at a very hard target, one of the hardest targets in the Middle East, something that is far away from other civilian centers. The Iranians going out of their way to say that they didn't target the people of the brotherly nation of Qatar. They just fired on the Americans. They made a direct parallel to what the Americans did to Iran, saying that they fired the same number of missiles that the U.S. fired at the nuclear facilities at the Al Udeid base. There are reports of sirens. Bahrain, they did have sirens that went off. There are reports of other bases on high alert. But we only know at this stage of Al Udeid coming under a direct attack. But when you look at it, it does seem like this was a response that Iran would probably know would be unsuccessful. unsuccessful, and it appears that it was unsuccessful. Now you have Qatar calling for a resumption of negotiations. But Iran obviously painting a very different picture to the domestic audience. The Iranian government has been humiliated. It is being disarmed by the day. There is no internet right now. People are in Iran. People are leaving the country. The supreme leader is reportedly in a bunker. He's cut himself off from electronic communications. Has named a succession plan, appointing several others to take his place should he be killed. So this is a critical moment for the Iranians, and they did respond, but it looks like they responded in a way that would not necessarily, from their interpretation, cross too many red lines.
All right, Richard, stand by for us, because I know a lot of information is coming to us and filtering through you, so stand by for us there. I want to come back here to the U.S. and to Tom Winter, who's been monitoring, obviously, any threats to the homeland post the nuclear site strike. Tom, what are you hearing right now? I got to think it stands to reason that law enforcement all across this country, especially the FBI, monitoring what's happening overseas and this new Iranian strike.
100%, Tom. And while the FBI's priorities have shifted to immigration to help assist with the effort that is being undertaken by CBP and ICE in this country, this is still a top focus for them. The threat for Iran and the various joint terrorism task forces around the country, which are comprised not only of FBI agents, but from representatives from local and state police departments, are focused on this threat, particularly after those airstrikes on Saturday. So it's really threefold. One, they're particularly concerned about individuals that are angered or upset by what's going on in the Middle East, and that could be at Israel, that could be at because of what's going on in the Gaza Strip, that could be because of what's going on in Iran. All of those issues could spark somebody to conduct an attack, and already we've seen that activity this year. Just in the last month or so, the Molotov cocktail attack in Boulder, Colorado, against a group of Jewish individuals there, and so that's something that they are definitely worried about, and that's why you've seen patrol stepped up in New York City, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. at sensitive cultural sites, religious centers, and also diplomatic sites. So that's kind of the number one threat that they're thinking about. Second threat is this idea of some sort of a cyber attack by Iranian proxies, either in the U.S. or abroad. That's something that could look like the temporary taking down of a website or defacing, kind of a digital graffiti, Tom. That's something that they're looking into and seeing whether or not Iran wants to go down that path. And that's just based on experience in their proportional responses in the past. And then the third thing is this idea of sleeper cells. And as we first reported on NBC Nightly News last night, this idea that Iran told through an intermediary, the White House and the president, that, look, if you come after us, we're going to unleash sleeper cells in the United States. A couple of things about that. Iran is using kind of its most cost-effective threat mechanism to deliver a message to the president of the United States. Talk is quite cheap. The question is whether or not they have anybody here. There have been concerns over the last 8 to 10 years, given the southern border, individuals that have come in that have later been found on terrorism watch lists, or people that have then been wanted for questioning because of their ties overseas once they've been in the country. So that's always a concern. That's always a possibility. The second thing on that is that the Iranians over the years have tried to carry out attacks, as Jeremy Bash referred to, on U.S. soil, the targeting twice of an Iranian journalist and activist here in New York City, leading to arrests and convictions. There was a case involving an individual who was charged and convicted and is in jail in the United States, 10 years or so left on their prison sentence, Alexei Saab. That's somebody who conducted surveillance in Boston, New York, and Washington, D.C., including in Rockefeller Center, where our offices are, kind of scouting out potential opportunities for attacks. He's somebody who traveled to Lebanon and spent some time with Hezbollah. There was also a threat just in the last 9 months against then President-elect Trump, now obviously the President of the United States, by several individuals who were coordinating with a person who's been charged and based in Iran. So that's just a sample of some of the plots that have been uncovered in the past. But of course, as I mentioned, we know about them because there's been arrests and prosecutions. So U.S. law enforcement is acutely aware of this threat. There's obviously always the potential that you don't know who's here, you don't know who could be in communication, but given what our colleague Richard Engel has been reporting as far as the lack of communication from Iran, the awareness by U.S. law enforcement, they think at the moment that they have a good handle on it, with the caveat, of course, that they know that they need to keep looking. And one other thing that I'll mention, we talked about Iran's proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, all the entities that they have sent up, kind of the tentacles. Those have been severely damaged over the last couple of years, particularly by Israel, the taking out really of Hezbollah, which everybody feared that if this day came where the U.S. had to interdict in Iran against the nuclear program, or that Israel did, that Hezbollah would launch attacks against Israel, U.S. interests overseas, and then that would be perhaps a nexus or a command and control point for any sort of operation here in the United States. They have been decimated by actions undertaken by the Israeli government, and so that has, in the eyes of U.S. officials, potentially weakened that threat, or at least Hezbollah's ability to operate here in the United States. So I don't think anybody is sitting on their hands. I know everybody's been focused on this. My phone has been ringing nonstop since Saturday night. Officials here continuing briefings on the matter. But at the moment, I think their biggest concern here in the U.S. is the idea that somebody could be angered by the entirety of the events that we've been talking about here this afternoon across the Middle East, and that would be a call to action. So that's really kind of the overlay, if you will, of what's going on here in the United States.
Tom Winchell, we thank you. If you were just joining our coverage right now, we have been following the breaking news over the last hour, Iran and its retaliatory strikes on a U.S. airbase in Qatar. From what we understand so far, Iran has launched several missiles at that airbase, but they have been intercepted by Qatari forces or by the U.S. forces as well. We understand that the airspace has been closed there, along with the UAE and Bahrain. Bahrain also sending off air sirens as well, but it's unclear if anything has happened in that country. We have several reporters in the region that have been following this in real time, along with our teams at the White House spread out across Washington and the Pentagon as well. I do want to go back to Keir Simmons, who is in Erbil, Iraq. And Keir, I know you have some new reporting about what has and has not happened there in Iraq, not too far from Iran.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. I just managed to reach a senior official in Baghdad to ask him whether the U.S. base in Anbar province here in Iraq, to the west of Iraq, whether that base has been targeted. I'll just mention, and we have been mentioning, Tom, of course, there's another U.S. base behind me there. You can see the lights blinking in the distance. Now, I am told by that official in Baghdad that they have not seen any indication of an attack on Iraq by the Iranians. Nothing happening there, he told me, not that we see. So just add to that, senior Gulf diplomat who tells me that Bahrain has not seen any kind of a strike there. Then add to that, of course, the news from the Qataris that they have intercepted the missiles that were fired at the U.S. base there in Qatar. Of course, I just mentioned, going back to Bahrain, the 5th Fleet base there, Tom, so it would be a potential target. So far, has not been struck. That doesn't mean there weren't missiles fired at these countries, simply that no missiles have had any impact, according to the diplomats and officials who I'm speaking to across the region. Another Gulf diplomat telling me that Saudi Arabia has not seen any strikes against it, and that diplomat confirming their understanding that at this stage it is uniquely Qatar that has been targeted. But the evening is still, what are we, about an hour ago that this began, Tom? You know, there's still time through the evening to see what we get from the Iranians.
Okay, Keir Simmons, stand by for us. Let's take this video full if we can, if I can ask the control room, because the night skies in Qatar were lit up with missiles and, of course, with anti-defense, air defense forces launching counteroffensive to those missiles coming in to Doha tonight, in scenes reminiscent of what we've seen in Tehran and Tel Aviv, where the night sky lights up with various missiles. But so far, we have no reports of any deaths. We have no reports of any injuries, and we have no reports even of any damage. It is still early, but Richard Engel, I want to go back to you. What does that tell us about this retaliatory strike from Iran?
I've never witnessed
Well, at this stage, it looks like it was a symbolic kind of strike, with Iran making a lot of noise about it, bragging about it, making a lot of statements, but attacking a target that is very well defended, isolated, trying to calibrate their response. The New York Times is reporting just now, citing 3 officials in Iran, that Qatar was informed ahead of time and that this was a symbolic attack. And Iran has done this in the past. When Iran carried out its missile strikes against Israel about a year ago now, they telegraphed what they were doing because they did not want to escalate it further than they believed they needed to. So when they launched drones against Israel, they told the world they were announcing drones. They told the world and the Israelis how the drones were coming to the country, their flight path, that they would be followed up by different weapon systems, missiles. So the Iranians initially telegraphed their operations. No, we don't have confirmation that they telegraphed them in this case, but the kind of strike, the target that was chosen, the fact that nothing got through, the fact that the Qataris had advance warning to close their airspace, that American and British nationals had already been told to shelter in place and were already taking precautions on the base and for the civilians in the country, indicates that they had some advanced knowledge, advanced intelligence, and that they were able to successfully stop what I think you can fairly easily describe as a symbolic response.
We'll keep watching what's happening there from Israel. I want to go back to Lieutenant General Barry McCaffrey. Barry, if we talk about sort of military planning and strategy here, right? The U.S. had quite the plan to attack Iran. The diversion with the B-2 bombers, then going straight, heading east, going straight for those nuclear sites. Even though Iran has sort of telegraphed what they've done, possibly putting out statements to signal maybe tonight is over, U.S. forces around the world still have to be very, very cautious.
Well, no question. We can only hope that the strike that Richard accurately described so far is largely symbolic. If it really was only 6 missiles, if they were all intercepted and knocked down, if Iran is claiming that this was an equivalent response to the U.S. strikes on their nuclear facilities, then this may be a prelude to a road to negotiations starting up and getting arms control inspectors on the ground again. We won't know. But I think it's important also to make the point, these U.S. forces in the region, whether in Iraq and Syria, Bahrain, Kuwait, Al Udeid, they're there as a fighting combat force. They're not hostages. They're there to put Iran at risk and terrorist organizations at risk and to protect U.S. national security interests. So we shouldn't view them as, if we wanted to only protect U.S. military forces as a major national objective, we take them out of the Gulf. But they're pretty competent. They're tough. The Navy's at sea with 20,000 sailors and 2 carrier battle groups. So there's a big hammer out in the Gulf right now.
All right, Barry, we thank you for that. Stand by for us. I'm going to go back to Gabe Gutierrez, who's monitoring everything from the White House. Gabe, give us a sense of what's happening there in the building just behind you, the White House, and possibly inside the Situation Room.
Well, Tom, yes, the president is in the Situation Room right now, we understand from White House officials, with his Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, along with other national security officials. Now, we have not heard over the last few moments about the latest here, but certainly the president taking in what is happening, potentially speaking with partners in the region, trying to assess the full extent of the damage here, or if they've managed to escape any severe damage, kind of what happens next. You were mentioning with Richard and with General McCaffrey, if this was a largely symbolic attack, and again, we don't know the full extent of this yet, but if it were to have an attack with no injuries and no significant damage to any U.S. assets
Gabe,
in the region, Tom, I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, Gabe, thanks. We have some breaking news just coming in. Courtney Kube at the Pentagon has some new reporting. Courtney, what can you tell our viewers?
Yeah, we are still working on confirmation about the possibility that the U.S., the base where U.S. personnel are housed at Al Udeid in Qatar, was in fact the subject of an attack by short and medium range missiles. We are still working through this, Tom. If you just give me a couple more minutes,
Yeah. No, I
come
get
back
it.
to me. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's okay. They told me to come over to you, but I appreciate
No,
you.
that was my fault.
We want to make sure. We want to make sure we're right. So keep working your sources. We appreciate that. We're not going to touch that reporting until we have it confirmed. Gabe, I'm going to go back to you. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but we are getting a lot of information, as you know, in real time, and we want to make sure the information we're bringing our viewers is absolutely correct. You were talking about the president monitoring this, and I also want to ask you, the vice president and Marco Rubio as well, the Secretary of State, going out there and making it very clear they don't want a war with Iran. And the vice president even said this. They have a war with Iran's nuclear program, essentially saying maybe they don't want any more of this fight. They've done what they wanted to do, but also threatening Iran to be careful if they retaliated.
Yeah, certainly. And look, it's highly unlikely and actually almost impossible for Iran to get that same message, at least for their domestic audience. They see it as the U.S. at war with Iran. But you're right. Administration officials have been very clear and reiterated over the last 48 hours or so, or less than that, that the U.S. is at war with Iran's nuclear program. The president himself, though, in his social media post late last evening, floating the idea of regime change, seemed to suggest that maybe that wasn't the full extent of the U.S.'s ambitions. But this morning, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that there was no change in military posture, that the focus of any campaign by the U.S. in Iran would be focused on Iranian nuclear capabilities. But as we watch this, Tom, another question will be, how long will the president be in the Situation Room monitoring this? We were expecting him to meet with his national security staff in the Oval Office. Unclear if perhaps that meeting could have opened up to press. That sometimes tends to happen when the president meets with officials in the Oval Office. We have not heard from him on camera since late Saturday evening. But the latest here from the White House, Tom, the president monitoring the situation with top national security officials in the Situation Room.
Gabe, I thank you for that. I think we are ready. Our reporting is ready as well. We're going to go back to Courtney Kube now, who has been working her sources, so plugged in there at the Pentagon. Courtney, what can you tell our viewers now?
Yeah, Tom, I'm sorry. It is developing very quickly here. So we now have, according to 2 U.S. officials, that in fact Iran did fire short and medium range missiles at Al Udeid. They were shot down by air defense systems. There are no reports of any casualties at this point. The officials telling us that attack has ended. The reason that I'm saying there were no reports of any casualties at this point is, remember what happened after the U.S. killed Qasem Soleimani in Iraq. Iran retaliated with a number of ballistic missiles fired at at Al-Assad, a base in western Iraq that houses U.S. troops. And while in the immediate aftermath of those missiles being fired, and remember, in that case, they actually did impact the base. There were initially no reports of major casualties, but then as time developed, there were a number of service members and even civilians who developed cases of traumatic brain injury and other sort of concussive blasts. Now, at this point, again, no casualties, no injuries reported. The belief is that all of these missiles were in fact intercepted. There was no impact. We are asking about sort of the next steps here, of course, and that is, remember, when you shoot down a missile, there can be debris that can fall to the ground if there's anything that was impacted by possible debris falling to the ground, and we're still working on some of the specifics about those short and medium range missiles, specifically how many were fired and exactly how close any of them actually got to Al Udeid. Again, this is developing very quickly, but U.S. officials now, in fact, confirming that Al Udeid, the base housing up to 5,000 Americans in Qatar, was targeted tonight by Iranian missiles. Now, remember, we've been talking about this over the last several days, but as the tensions increased between Israel and Iran, as they continued to trade fire back and forth, and as the U.S. started talking about the possibility of the military strikes that occurred in Iran over the weekend, the U.S. took some mitigating measures to try to protect Americans and assets from the possibility of this sort of a strike by Iran. That included moving some aircraft out and some personnel. But we do not have indications that the base was fully evacuated in advance of this attack, Tom.
And then, Courtney, the Trump administration has been very clear that that they don't want a long-term war with Iran, right? But what are you hearing from inside the Pentagon? Is it still just too early to know if there is another strike from the U.S.? I mean, we're still sort of getting all the information in from this retaliatory strike, but with no injuries so far, no casualties that we know of, and we're waiting on if there's even any damage so far. Does the U.S. have to flex any muscle in retaliation to this kind of strike?
Yeah, I imagine that the U.S. going into the strikes in Iran over the weekend had a number of plans in place for what they could do if, in fact, Iran retaliated and sort of the levels of retaliation, right? So there's what we're seeing right now, which is an attack on, at this point, one installation with the U.S. in the region. It seems at this point it was unsuccessful. Officials again telling us that at this point it is over. But if there hasn't been damage, if there have not been casualties, is it possible that the U.S. is not going to respond? Again, I point back to after the Qasem Soleimani death, after the U.S. took out Qasem Soleimani in Iraq, Iran retaliated. You know, there can be these back and forths, but they sort of can also fizzle out if, in fact, there's no deaths incurred or no infrastructure. But I imagine that is the top topic of conversation right now in that Situation Room and among defense officials. And no matter what, I imagine that they are presenting options to President Trump as we speak, or drawing up new options should he decide that he wants to respond back to what is at this point, appears to be retaliation by Iran for the U.S. military strikes in Iran over the weekend.
All right, Courtney, you stand by for us. When you get any new reporting, we will come right back to you. I'm going to go back to Richard Engel, who's reporting from Tel Aviv tonight. He's been covering all the developments that have happened between Israel and Iran, and now, of course, the U.S. and Iran. Richard, we can confirm from U.S. officials short and medium-range missiles were fired from Iran, pointed and targeting the Al Udeid U.S. base there in Qatar. But they're saying that each of those missiles was intercepted in the air from those air defense systems. It looks like at this point, from what we've heard, it's still very early. No injuries, no casualties so far on the U.S. side.
We're hearing that now from the Pentagon. We're hearing that now from officials in Qatar. And most critically, both sides are saying that it appears to be over. That is a fundamental part of all of this. Iran got a response. They fired on a military target, not close to civilians in Qatar. The attack shot down U.S. military bases, had already been on high alert, and Qatar in particular had been on high alert with the airspace closed shortly before this attack, and American and British citizens told to shelter in place. So they were prepared for something. It is over. It seems that there are no casualties, according to both the Qataris and the Pentagon. And as you were talking earlier to General Barry McCaffrey, who's been in these situations before as a four-star retired American general, these troops are not there as sitting ducks. They are not hostages. They are there to be CENTCOM's forward operating position. They are there to carry out strikes against Iran. And Iran is saying it responded in a legitimate way, and perhaps this could open up a door for negotiations. That is what Qatar says it would like to see. Now we will see if President Trump agrees.
Richard Engel reporting for us from Tel Aviv tonight. Richard, we thank you. I'm going to go back to Gabe Gutierrez to check in with the White House, and as the president monitors all this. Gabe, as you reported, one of the first things you reported, we were expecting to hear from the president at some point today, possibly. Do we think the schedule has changed? Do you think he'll make any type of statements about what's just occurred tonight overseas in Qatar?
Well, that remains to be seen, Tom. Certainly, the president, not shy in front of cameras, likes to address the American public when he can in these types of situations. Now, what we had been expecting earlier today was a national security meeting in the Oval Office that had not been opened up to press, but as sometimes is the case in those situations, the president does bring cameras in. Right now, we are trying to reach White House officials to see if there has been any change to the schedule. We have no indication of that yet. As far as we know, the president and his top national security staff are still in the Situation Room monitoring all this. But picking up on where Richard left off, if there was an attack where the missiles were intercepted, no U.S. casualties, certainly that will be seen as very good news from the White House. And then probably what they're also discussing now is what, if anything, will they do to retaliate, or will this perhaps be an opening for some sort of peace talks with the Iranian government, something that the White House had been calling for, but seemed increasingly unlikely in the aftermath of those U.S. airstrikes in Iran. So again, the latest here from the White House, Tom, we have not received word if the president plans to address the American people. As far as we know, he is still in the Situation Room monitoring all this with his national security staff.
All right, our Gabe Gutierrez reporting from the White House. If you've been tuning in, we have been following the developments out of Iran and Qatar. Iran launching a retaliation strike over the U.S.'s strike on their nuclear sites over the weekend. From what we know right now from 2 U.S. officials, the Al Udeid base there in Qatar was targeted as the largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East. Up to 5,000 American service members working there, civilians and soldiers alike, all members of the U.S. forces there. From what we're hearing from the U.S. officials, short-range and medium-range missiles were fired at the base, but they were intercepted by air defense systems. So far, no reports of any casualties. So far, no reports of any injuries. Iran has put out statements through their state media alerting their own people that this attack has happened. But so far after that, no other missiles have been launched.
And that was an NBC special report on breaking news, developing news. And this is from NBC News. I want to make sure I get it right. Iran says it launched missile strikes against U.S. forces in Qatar. The Iranian military announced a strike against the Al Udeid air base, which is stations thousands of U.S. troops. And Qatar confirmed the attack and said there were no casualties. So that's the latest from that situation there in Qatar. Again, this is a situation we've been following for the past couple of hours now. I want to bring on a guy we've had on the show previously. You've seen him in the evenings. Navin Popat, Dow Professor of Peace and War and Political Science at UNC Chapel Hill, is here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
For the folks at home who are just now tuning in, seeing the headlines, can you put into context what is playing out right now in Qatar?
Sure. So it appears that there has been, or it's been confirmed that there is a retaliatory strike against the Al Udeid base, which is housing CENTCOM in Qatar. So that, again, what this is likely. What's likely happening is that this is Iran's response to the attack by the United States with the B-2s that were intended to destroy the deep nuclear facilities that happened over the last several hours. So it was, the 3 of those installations were attacked within Iran's territory. So this is a retaliation for that. One thing that we can say about this is that it looks limited based on these reports. It doesn't look like Iran showered tons of targets or that this wasn't in some way, it was an attack that could be managed, I think, by the United States. So it remains to be seen what happens after that.
Yeah, according to NBC News, President Trump is in the Situation Room right now evaluating what to do next. And I guess the question that's on a lot of folks' mind, I've got a couple of text messages in the last few minutes about it, but, what are the risks of further escalation between the U.S., Israel, Iran?
Well, so the attack by the United States on Iran, I think, started a path, right? And that path can start to escalate through these series of steps to something larger. Now, I will say that the U.S. strike seemed limited. It attacked key facilities, but it seemed limited. And I would say that based on these reports, it appears that Iran's response is also limited. So it's possible that given that both sides seem to be trying to restrain themselves from all-out war, that we can possibly get to a solution that won't take us down that long road that gets us into a very difficult war that the United States would face if we're facing this sort of big conventional conflict with Iran.
And just to add to that, is there a pathway? I know you sort of alluded to it. Is there a pathway towards diplomacy because these attacks or this most recent attack was limited?
So I think so. I think just in any conflict that we look at, there's a lot of possibilities to get to peace. Oftentimes we're limited by our creativity, but there's a lot of different ways for countries to de-escalate these things. Again, if we assume that conflict is very costly to all sides, if we assume a conflict entails these risks to both sides, there should be reasons for them to want to pull out of it. So, and I think in this case, neither the United States nor Iran really wants to get into a deep conflict here, right? I don't think anyone, the United States and the Trump administration has promised an end to large foreign involvement in the Middle East and large conflicts in the Middle East. Iran, for its part, has been significantly damaged over the last several months, so it's probably not wanting a large conflict with the United States at this time. So the limitation of Iran's response suggests that there is a pathway that they want to take that can de-escalate things between at least the United States and Iran. Israel is a different question.
I know the Trump administration, specifically President Trump, has mentioned a regime change in Iran, but with that, would a conflict be avoidable if a regime change is what the Trump administration wants?
Well, if a regime change is actually what the Trump administration wants, Iran is very unlikely to peacefully just step down as a government and allow for a new government to take place. That's a real maximalist demand. And so prior to that, over these last few months, what the Trump administration has been asking for is some limitation on the nuclear program, not a full regime change. So I think what Iran will likely do is try to go towards that objective versus full regime change, unless it really is the case now that the Trump administration's preferences have just changed and now they prefer to topple the Iranian regime. If that is the case, then Iran has no reason to negotiate. They're not going to negotiate their own demise.
I think a lot of folks here at home are scared. They want to know what's next. What does this mean for folks here as far as this, I guess, this tit for tat right now with the U.S. and Iran?
So I think the thing to be concerned about is what happens in the region, not necessarily what happens here in North Carolina. So again, to put it in some context, one possibility is that given that Iran is facing these strikes, it might try to engage in some aspects of transnational terrorism. It's done that in the past. So possibly there might be targets here in the United States. But I want to emphasize that if we look at the data and we look at terrorism basically since the late 1960s to now, most terrorist attacks do not tend to be successful. Most terrorist attacks don't tend to harm that many people. And there are some exceptions to that. Of course, 9/11 and October 7th being two exceptions to that. But in most cases, terrorism is not really something that will affect most Americans to a great extent. Again, the likelihood of being harmed by terrorism is lower than the likelihood of being in a traffic accident. And I don't say that to be facetious. I'm just, again, comparing risks. It's not something to be so concerned about. But that's not to say that in the region, it's not possible for Iran to start attacking U.S. assets there. And several of those are homes to Americans that are serving abroad. So there is risk involved. I don't want to downplay that. But the risk to the U.S., the United States itself, is probably fairly low.
It's Navin Papad, Dow Professor of Peace and War and Political Science at UNC. Thank you so much for your time. I know we asked you to come on the show last minute, but there are a lot of questions. Again, thank you for putting this all into context for us.
Thank you.
All right, we continuing to follow that developing situation there in Qatar as far as those strikes there on the military base there in Qatar. And as soon as we learn more information, we want to bring it to you here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Because as soon as we saw those reports, and I just want to pull back the curtain for a second, as soon as we saw those reports, within a minute maybe, we came on here and provided you those updates, sent you straight to that NBC special report. Because this is a situation that has developed. It seems like each hour we get new information. So yes, again, as soon as we get more information, I know this sounds redundant, but I just want to promise you that we will update you here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, so let's totally reset, guys. Let's totally reset. I know we've been following the story in Qatar and the conflict between the U.S. and Iran, but we want to come back here home. We want to talk about a big story here, and it's the heat. It's hot. Obviously, it's hot. If you take 2 steps outside, it's hard to miss the heat. And look, a lot of folks are like me. They like to crank the AC low.
You like it very low.
I like it low, but I learned a few things recently.
did?
I learned a few things, some tips on how to save a few extra dollars in my pocket when it comes to my energy bill. Also, not just saving dollars, saving energy.
Yep.
That's an important part of it. So I got a chance to speak with Duke Energy, Caroline Fountain with Duke Energy, a spokesperson for Duke Energy, about those ways, and they helped me, so hopefully they can help you. Let's take you now to that interview. I want to bring in live here on Live Impact News, Caroline Fountain with Duke Energy. She heard what I said. She started laughing. Look, you guys you guys do fantastic work, especially the crews out there in the field. But how can folks, and you're talking about saving money and saving energy. We'll start here. I talked about my bill. You don't want to see that. How can folks save some money when it comes to this heat and when it comes to using that AC properly?
Well, for sure. Well, today is the perfect day to talk about it. It's the first day of summer. And just like you said, we are going to be seeing some high temperatures heading our way very soon, this weekend into next week. And so essentially, this is the time, right, in order to take advantage of a couple of quick and easy tips that actually people can do right now as they're watching. So the number one that we recommend is turning your thermostat to the highest comfortable setting. So the Tundra, I'm not sure about that, but setting that to the highest comfortable temperature for your own family, right? And then second, really using those ceiling fans. That's actually going to make it feel up to 4 degrees cooler. So you'll be able to kind of play and adjust with your thermostat there. And then, also for me, I don't have any trees around my home. So closing those blinds, closing those curtains will really help keep the cool air in and the hot air out, especially as the sun is beating down in the afternoon sun.
As you were saying that, I have it. I can control it through an app on my phone. I just bumped up. It was on 68.
Yeah, tell us. Where do you have it at?
It was on 68, and so I bumped it up to about 72. I just want to, before I get to my next question, is that good?
But it's really up to your own family's personal comfort settings. However, I love that you just mentioned that you're using that through your app. You've obviously got a smart thermostat, and that's a real huge benefit for folks. I'll just do a quick plug here for the things that I have here next to me. So any Duke Energy customer who's a homeowner, you can get a free home energy assessment. So an energy advisor can come to your home and see what opportunities you have in your particular home to save energy, which translates into savings on your bill. And then you'll also get this free kit, which is great. You got caulking, you got weather stripping, you got this charging thing, you got a couple of great ways to save on energy efficient water use. And so, with that, if you are interested in a smart thermostat, they will actually install that free of charge for you during the assessment. So it's a great way, like you said, when you're away from home, just crank it up a couple degrees. And then, on your way home, you can turn it back down, and then it's comfortable from when you're home.
Some great advice there. So we talk about saving money, that's important, but why is it important to save energy?
Yeah, well, you pay for what you use, right? And so when you're using more energy, especially during the summer, you got to think, even if you're keeping your settings to the same degree, well, guess what? The hotter it gets outside, the harder your AC unit is going to be working. And so if you want to be having larger savings on your bill, that translates into saving more energy at home. And that can be, caulking your windows. It can be using, weather stripping for your doors. If you see a little bit of light through your door, well, guess what? You probably need a little bit of weather stripping there. Like I said, closing those blinds, using those ceiling fans.
It's Caroline Fountain with Duke Energy. Caroline, can you talk about some of the financial assistance programs? Because there are some folks that they're struggling to pay their bills.
Yeah, so we have a lot of different ways that we can help customers in need. So one, you can sign up for a payment installment plan. So that's, something you can do. Also, we partner with community agencies. So for, low income home energy assistance programs, so you can apply for assistance through that. We have Duke Energy's Share the Light Fund you can apply for as well. And actually, we have a brand new tool that went live this month on our website website under the Special Assistance tab, where you can actually look up your local agency by just your zip code. And those are agencies that have recently partnered with us in order to help those customers in need. So great new tool to check out.
One more question before I let you go, so you can enjoy your Friday, enjoy your weekend. What is it like for crews out in the field who work in the heat, but they're also making sure folks are comfortable at home?
For sure. So as you can imagine, safety is our #1 priority. So making sure that our crews are properly prepared as they head out into the field, plenty of water, taking plenty of breaks. But we also know that it's, a priority to get electricity reliably to our customers. So it's really, making that service as well as keeping our crews safe.
Oh man, I got lost in the interview. But look, seriously, I learned a lot. Actually, when I left the house, I made sure to set my,
Your thermostat?
Thermostat, thank you, to 75.
Okay. That's warmer than 68 that you had before.
I did. I would leave it on 68, and then I would come in, and it's frozen in there. I mean, I could leave out food if I needed.
You have a meat locker situation?
Right. It was a meat locker situation. So I tried it. I tried it a couple of days ago. I was busy Saturday. I had a race, and then I did some other things. I was like, okay, let me set it to 75, and it remained pretty cool in the house. I was like, okay, this actually works.
Do you have a lot of natural light coming in your house? Yeah.
I do.
Okay, so because I feel like that changes. I don't have as much natural light, so my house naturally stays cooler, which is kind of nice. But when you have so much light, I feel like you're just fighting with the sunshine.
I'm fighting the sun.
Yeah.
And I'm on the 3rd floor.
And you're on the 3rd floor.
Heat rises. So,
heat rises.
So I'm making do.
You're making do.
When I get home, Becca, I can turn it back down to 68.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's what we set it as in the nighttime, and then when we go out to work, we put it at 72.
Okay.
Same. We do the same thing over at our house.
So 72. So I'll say 75. I'm an overachiever.
You're overachieving.
You're saving some bucks.
I want to. You got to. I'm trying to. So, but I'm just trying to beat the heat, just like a lot of folks, Becca.
Yeah.
I'm trying to beat the heat.
Gotta find a way to stay cool, for sure.
I might just stick my head in the freezer or something like that.
Stick your head in your house. Apparently at 68.
Well, that is also true. That is also. It's not a big difference.
We're all gonna go to Nick's house.
We're all gonna go to Nick's house.
My energy bill will really be up. So what are we facing? It's an ick day. It's a Nick ick.
Definitely an ick week for sure. I mean, we are weather alert for dangerous heat expected. Yeah. You said it best on Nick's icks, where you declared Monday through Thursday.
This is Nick's opinion. That's my favorite part of the graphic.
In quotes. Yeah. A big thumbs down of a week, but we do have some good news. We'll have more cloud cover in the forecast for Wednesday and Thursday, and the potential for rain and thunderstorms, which could provide some relief from that intense heat out there. But look at those heat alerts that we have just all across the country, from the upper Midwest extending all the way up into the Northeast. In the orange, those are heat advisories. That's when the heat index gets above 105, but that extreme heat warning is when the heat index could get above 110 degrees. And so a couple of counties actually have now been included under a heat advisory. Previously, the Charlotte Metro was not encompassed in this, only some of our most eastern counties. So that's going to be the new thing. Heat advisory has been issued, with the exception up into the mountains, and an extreme heat warning has also been issued for portions of Raleigh as well. Now, this is the heat advisory that is in place for today, again, with those heat index values expected to be above 105. So this is dangerous heat. We're talking Monday through Thursday, especially during the peak of the daytime hours. So stay weather alert and definitely find a way to stay cool throughout the day, especially if you do have to be outside during the peak of the daytime hours. 3 S words this week: sunscreen, shaded area, and stay hydrated. The UV index at 11 today. That is extreme burn time of 10 minutes. Outside right now is about 2 o'clock, 96 degrees in Charlotte, 92 in Monroe, doing about 95 over towards Cheraw, and we are up to 86 already over in Boone, 93 in Morganton. Of course, factoring in the humidity. Look at that. Feels like 101 in Charlotte. Feels like 100 in Cheraw. Feels like 101 in Albemarle, and even up to around 98 over towards Morganton. That gives you an idea of where we are headed for this week. High temperatures, actual high temperatures today, upper 90s across the metro, middle 80s for the high country. We are on day 4 of our heat streak where we have consecutive high temperatures of 90 degrees or above, and we've got lots more to add to that number in this week ahead. Today in Boone, we've got a forecasted high of 88 degrees. They're up to around 86 at the moment, but that record is 88. So we have a chance to potentially tie this back in 1998, but the normal high for this time of year is 77. Gives you an idea of how unseasonable this warm weather is across the Carolinas. Hourly heat index will probably peak around 103 for this afternoon, going up even further as we approach the next several days, with actual highs likely hitting 100 degrees by tomorrow afternoon. And looking ahead, of course, to our next best chance for rain coming towards midweek. Big story going in the next several days is going to be that peak heat index close to 105 by the time we get to Tuesday. Again, why we have those active heat advisories in place, but it's going to be feeling above 100 this entire week ahead. Now you'll notice high temperatures will start to back off just a little bit by the time we get into Friday, Saturday, into portions of this weekend. I will say the humidity is also going to be a little bit higher towards the end of the work week, so it will still be feeling very hot out there. Stray shower possible for Tuesday, nothing much for your Monday. But by the time we get into Wednesday, that's when we have the better chance to see some scattered showers and thunderstorms, some of which could be on the stronger side. So the Storm Prediction Center has now put us under a low threat for the potential for an isolated strong storm that could contain some damaging wind gusts. Just keep that in mind. It's an isolated threat, but not zero. Also checking in on the tropics, we've got this disturbance out in the central Atlantic. It's about 600 miles east of Bermuda. Has a 70% chance of tropical cyclone development over the next 48 to about 7 days. This could become a tropical depression by the end of the day. We could see it maybe by the end of the day tomorrow as well, but as it continues to push up to the northeast, those are less favorable environments, more wind shear, cooler waters. So this could potentially be our first named storm of the season, which first name would be Andrea, but haven't hit it just yet. Our random weather stat of the day, 45 Charlotte summers have hit 100 degrees plus. 2024 was actually one of them, and the last time that we hit 100 degrees. And 31% of summers have hit 100 degrees or plus. And of course, the average date that we normally hit 100 degrees in those summers was July 11th, but the earliest date that we hit it was June 3rd, back in 1895. 7-day forecast. Miserably hot, humid today through Thursday. That is why we are weather alert, because those heat index values are going to be above 102. We also now do have a heat advisory in place across the Charlotte area, so keep that in mind. As we approach this weekend, a couple of isolated storms in the forecast. You'll notice those high temperatures go down in the lower 90s. It's going to be more humid as well, so it's still going to be feeling like the middle to upper 90s at least, but won't be as intensely hot as what we are anticipating today, tomorrow, all the way through Thursday.
Ooh, yeah. I'm just looking at 7-day real quick, and I'm like, man, it's
That is an ice cream melter of a forecast.
And it's the feels like. It's not the actual temperature. It's the feels like temperature that really
It gets you.
Yeah.
It'll take it out of you.
Sauna-like conditions.
It was a
every
sauna
day.
this morning on my run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Did you drink plenty of water?
I did.
Okay.
But man, it was like hard to breathe.
Yeah.
It was like what, 5:30 in the morning. It was
At
hard
5:30 in the morning, and you're already like huffing and puffing. Yeah, I mean,
You're already
yeah.
struggling.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not gonna make it.
But you did. You're here.
I did. I got it in. So, but yeah, we keep saying this, but we want folks to protect themselves, wear the sunscreen, drink plenty of water.
Check on your friends.
Check on your
Check
friends.
on your neighbors.
Neighbors. The
Pets.
pets. Everybody. So yeah, that's why we're weather alert. So we want folks to be safe. Becca, thank you for your time.
Of course.
Oh man, 105 feels like
105.
tomorrow.
105.
Yeah.
At what temperature do you say, you know what, I can't run outside? What
That I can't.
were you at almost that limit this morning? I was just curious because you're an outside runner.
I'm a early. So it was we were approaching 80 degrees this morning.
Okay.
Early this morning. Oh, I wouldn't run if we hit 90. I'm not running.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, it's just
treadmill's my best
yeah,
friend.
it's unsafe at a certain point.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't see it. I know folks train.
Oh, sure.
And they train
people
outside.
train for it, whatever. But
I don't think I'm built like that. I don't think I'm built for that.
They're built different. You're not built like that.
I don't know. Should I share this? I just got this. So we got a link. So you heard the interview that we did with Duke Energy when it comes to conserving money, energy, when it comes to the use of your AC. So Duke Energy has a fantastic link about how it is preparing the energy grid for extreme conditions. Obviously, this week we are facing some extreme heat. And I just want to read you a little bit of it. You could check it out right now on Duke Energy's website under the Energy Education link. It is titled Protecting Reliability. So extreme conditions caused by weather or other events can put a strain on the energy grid and available power supplies. That's why Duke Energy has detailed plans for managing the grid through all types of conditions, from the intense heat of the summer to the frigid cold of winter. We use historical data, Duke Energy, as I'm referring to, real-time analysis, and predictive modeling, advanced technologies, and years of operational experience to help reliably meet evolving customer energy needs. So they do a variety of things, and they give tips for your home, tips for your businesses, and what we should be doing every day to help protect the grid.
Some of these tips are things I don't think I would have thought about. Like one of them here says like shift non-essential activities like laundry to early in the morning in the summer when the power demand is lower. That's something I wouldn't even think about.
Never thought about it. Some really good tips are, and again, we're going through this in real time, but like if you have an electric water heater, limit the use of hot water as much as possible. That's during the winter. Again, and we're going through this in real time, so I'm trying to pick out some stuff that. But yeah, I would say if you have a second, I think this is really good, useful information for folks to go through. That was a really good one about the large appliances. Because I run my dishwasher and I do laundry. It doesn't matter what time of day.
Avoid using large appliances like dishwashers, ovens, and dryers during high demand periods. So like for summers, it'd be late afternoon. Would be your high demand time.
I mean, it's again a lot of useful information. You should check it out. Again, it's called Protecting Reliability, Preparing the Energy Grid for Extreme Conditions, and it's under the Duke Energy Education tab. So it's there for you. Just want to kind of point it out. So yeah, I implore you guys to check that out. All right, so we want to go to D.C. This is the House of Representatives. So they are in session right now. So yeah, let's listen in to what they have to say. I'm sure Carlene and I were talking about it. I'm sure lawmakers are getting the reports and discussing the recent strikes by Iran to a U.S. military base in Qatar. But let's listen in to what's happening right now.
Thank you, sir.
All right, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We're approaching the bottom of the hour. It looks like they're taking a little bit of break in the House of Representatives. That is, they're on the floor right now. As soon as something happens, we'll try to get back to it. It does look like somebody is speaking right now. Okay, we're checking the audio again. The House is in session right now. Both the House and I believe the Senate are in session, but the House is in session. Somebody's speaking. Let's listen into what's being said.
Cost and feasibility of a transatlantic submarine fiber optic cable connecting the contiguous United States Virgin Islands, Ghana, and Nigeria.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Bilirakis, and the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Pallone, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and insert extraneous materials in the record on the bill.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I rise today, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of H.R. 1737. I'm advocating for this particular bill. The bill would direct the Secretary of Commerce to submit a report on the value, cost, and feasibility of developing a transatlantic submarine cable connecting the United States, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Ghana, and Nigeria. Submarine cables are critical components of communications infrastructure carrying data traffic across oceans. There are more than 600 active and planned submarine cable systems that keep the world connected, but there is no cable connecting the United States to the continent of Africa. A transatlantic submarine cable could provide national security benefits to the United States, given Africa's strategic importance, and is an important issue to study, in my opinion. I would like to thank Delegate Plaskett and Representative Fulcher for their leadership on this particular bill, and I urge my colleagues to join me in voting in favor of H.R. 1737, and I'll reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of H.R. 1737, a bill requiring the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or NTIA, to assess the value, cost, and feasibility of a transatlantic submarine fiber optic cable connecting the United States, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Ghana, and Nigeria, and to submit a report to Congress with its findings. The bill also directs NTIA to report to Congress on the current state of telecommunications connecting the U.S. Virgin Islands and the United States, including the assessment of the lifespan and security of telecommunications infrastructure linking the two. This legislation will provide Congress with vital information on the strength and resiliency of communications infrastructure in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It will also help us determine whether American interests can be served by connecting the U.S. and the African continent with undersea cable infrastructure by way of the U.S. Virgin Islands. This bill is an important step to enhance American communications security and competitiveness around the world. In recent years, Mr. Speaker, the United States and many allies have recognized the threat posed by untrusted Chinese telecommunications equipment and to our national security. And thanks to the work of the Energy and Commerce Committee in Congress, we have taken steps to remove suspect equipment and software from American communications networks to protect against sabotage and undue influence by our adversaries. Much of this work has been done on a bipartisan basis. One noteworthy example is the legislation Congress passed to force the divestment of TikTok from ownership by companies controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, which passed overwhelmingly with hundreds of Democrats and Republican votes. And that's why I was frustrated to learn last week that President Trump again unlawfully granted TikTok an extension, allowing China to infiltrate American networks for another 90 days. President Trump's disregard for the law is well known at this point, but I was more disappointed that none of my Republican colleagues had the courage to call on the president to enforce the law. Trump's stall tactics are allowing China to continue to collect.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. All right, we are a little past the bottom of the hour. It's 2:32 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Taking a live look at our nation's capital as U.S. leaders in the House are in session right now. So let's shift away from that. We'll get back to that in a moment. We want to come back here home. We want to talk about a new program in Lancaster County. So MUSC Health Lancaster Medical Center is, as I mentioned, launching this new program. And this program is huge. This program represents significant investment in expanding healthcare access and building sustainable physician workforce for the region. So there are plans already underway to launch an additional family medicine residency program as well. But before I get into the weeds of the story, I want to check in with our reporter, WCNC Charlotte's Kaylin Hagwood, who is covering this story. So, Kaylin, what can you tell us? I know you're covering the story. What can you tell us?
Well, this is a really exciting initiative, Nick, not only for our area, but for Lancaster in particular. I am from the city of Lancaster, if anyone doesn't know that yet. I'm muted myself. And so I can tell you just how significant this is. I'm sorry, I'm adjusting to this new platform as well. I can see myself back, so that's throwing me just a little bit. But I'm going to talk you guys through a little bit about what you can expect from this program. And so basically, it's a residency program. So you may have heard of a residency program, and that just allows people who've gone to medical school to have this opportunity to get on the job training and specialized training with oversight. So this is going to allow this hospital, which is the only hospital in the city of Lancaster, to have some extra hands and to be able to support those individuals and to teach those individuals and to train those individuals. And that also kind of doesn't necessarily increase the staff per se, because these will be individuals that are having oversight, but it does in ways offer additional hands for to support the hospital and to support the patients, with the goal that once these individuals leave the program, that they will be able to go out into the community and stay in the community, which studies actually show that individuals who do go through residency programs in certain areas are more likely to stay in those areas. Another significant part of this is just how large of an investment it is. I mean, you have one of the largest investments by the state to make this all possible. Also, a lot of private donors coming to the table to make this possible. So a major investment into Lancaster, and a major investment into seeing these residents be successful, and for this community to be successful. I want to toss it over to some sound that I got from the program director, who spoke a little bit about the impact of making investments into rural healthcare.
By starting a residency program, our goal is to train very confident and compassionate physicians who can also stay in the community and serve the community for future. By this way, we're going to try to eliminate the physician shortages as much as we can. And right now, we got wonderful residents coming from all over the world, and our goal is to retain these exemplary residents for this community.
And so, he was obviously very passionate about the work and about this program. I met one of the great residents who's going to be participating. She's very excited. You'll hear from her on WCNC Charlotte at 6. But yeah, I just think, being someone who is from this area, I can speak to the importance of having that investment in rural areas. And, I just think that this is a great thing for the community. And, I'm hopeful that all of these residents that come on board, right now they're starting with 8, but they're hoping to have a couple dozen come on board, and that they'll stick around and fall in love with the area and want to hang out here and continue to serve.
Caitlin, can you speak more to that? Because you, again, you are from Lancaster. You talk about Lancaster, how I talk about my hometown, High Point. I know Carlene is sick of me mentioning our hometown, but we're proud of our hometown. And so what does this mean for the folks there in this program? And again, this is expanding healthcare access. This is expanding the workforce in the region. Like, what does Lancaster offer those folks from your perspective?
The city of Lancaster is just a short drive away from the city of Charlotte and all that it has to offer. Lancaster County, particularly Indialand, is just a developing and growing area that is bustling with different opportunities, whether that be opportunities for work or opportunities to entertain yourself. The city of Lancaster offers a unique opportunity for these residents to really dig in to a community that really needs it, and to support people who have perhaps unique health challenges, and that they can be able to offer that support and feel like they're really a part of a community in the way that a small town kind of gathers around you and you get to know people on that personal level. I think that the hospital system, MUSC Health, is actually not only working to invest in the city of Lancaster, but they are also working to build another hospital, to develop another hospital out in Indian Land as well. And they're also hoping to expand some family medicine residency programs within their pharmacy network as well. So I'm sorry, not pharmacy network. When I think about MUSC, I think about the school, but of course, I'm talking about the hospital system. So within the MUSC Health Network, they are working to expand their footprint in a number of different areas.
Look, we have a fellow Gamecock on here on the program, so Carlene understands it totally. Yes. Kaylin, thank you for your time. Thank you for the story. This is a big story, and thank you for your perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great day.
You too. And that's Kaylin Hagwood there, an important story and an important initiative there for Lancaster County. All right, so let's shift away from that. We want to go to D.C., where Hakeem Jeffries is speaking right now. Let's take a listen in to what he's talking about.
Tomorrow, but we expect them to explain to the American people the basis of the strike. What were the results in terms of actually thwarting Iran's capacity to become a nuclear power? And what are the Trump administration plans to avoid another potentially disastrous war in the Middle East, where thousands of American lives are potentially at risk? What is your plan to avoid another foreign war? A promise you made, a promise that Donald Trump made to the American people last year. And just like every other major promise that he made on the campaign trail, he's failed to keep it. Question?
Mr. Leader,
you've been very
Thank you.
Mr. Leader, I know you just said it's not optional to use military force without consulting Congress, but what is your specific reaction to this afternoon's retaliatory strikes? Also, were you briefed this morning about the potential for retaliation? And lastly, have you been given any updated intelligence assessment about what damage may or may not have occurred from Saturday's strikes?
On Saturday at the highest levels, I communicated to the White House that it was my expectation that we would have a Gang of 8 classified briefing immediately to discuss the military strike on Iran, the potential for retaliation, as well as to probe the basis and justification for the offensive military action, and to understand the damage that was actually done and whether reports are accurate that Iran may have moved significant amounts of their enriched uranium in advance of the strike, which would effectively allow them to remain in a position to become a nuclear power. That Gang of 8 briefing has not taken place. So the question is, why not? What is the administration hiding from the elected representatives of the United States Congress if they're willing to stand behind their actions? Now, our thoughts prayers, and our full support will continue to be behind the members of the United States military who are in harm's way throughout the Middle East. That's unwavering and unequivocal support for our service men and women in the military throughout the Middle East. That is different than making sure that the Trump administration in a democracy follows the law, follows the Constitution, and does what's in the best interest of the national security of the American people.
Peter Jeffries.
Thanks. Back row.
Leader Jeffries, would you support the Ro Khanna War Powers resolution?
I haven't taken a look at it.
Leader Jeffries, Speaker Johnson just said that now is not the, quote, appropriate time for that resolution. What's your response? And also, do you expect to receive another briefing from the White House? What have they told you?
We haven't gotten an initial briefing from the White House. All we received from the White House was a so-called courtesy call with no explanation as to the rationale for the decision that was taken that could have serious consequences for the American people. I asked for a Gang of Eight briefing. It has yet to occur. And it's not clear to me what the administration is hiding from the Congress and from the American people. If they have a case to make, come up to Capitol Hill and make it. In terms of the War Powers Act resolutions, because House Republicans changed the rules in this Congress, those resolutions would ordinarily be required to be presented for an up or down vote within 48 hours because they were privileged in nature. For some reason, House Republicans don't want to have a full and comprehensive and swift debate on the War Powers Act issue before the American people. So they've changed the rules such that the resolutions aren't even eligible for a debate on the House floor until several weeks from now. That's outrageous. And House Republican leaders are going to have to explain that to their own base, which also does not want to see another dangerous, potentially disastrous Middle Eastern war.
Mr. Leader, you've been very clear in your position that Congress should have authorized, that military action should have been authorized through Congress. If the Commander-in-Chief had sought congressional approval here, would you have given it to him?
We've seen no evidence to date that an offensive strike of this nature was justified under the War Powers Act or the Constitution. But the whole reason for the Trump administration to undertake that process is to come up to Capitol Hill and convince the American people and their elected representatives in the House and in the Senate. That hasn't happened. And what I can say is not a scintilla of evidence to date has been presented that I have seen to justify the notion that there was an imminent threat to the United States of America. If the administration has evidence to the contrary, come up to present it. We're not hard to find. I'm not hiding. And we've asked for a Gang of Eight briefing. Tomorrow, there will be an opportunity for every single member of the House to hear the information from the administration, and hopefully they will present it in a manner that's comprehensive. It will be probed, it will be tested, it will be aggressively pushed back against, and then we'll see what the outcome is after that classified
Just
briefing.
up until this point, what is your estimation of how close Iran has been to obtaining a nuclear weapon?
That's a question that the administration is going to have to provide to us and to the American people.
Mr. Leader.
Thanks. Go in the back.
Yeah, Leader Jeffries, you clearly think President Trump's actions here were unconstitutional. So what are you and other Democrats going to do to hold him accountable, if not a vote on the War Powers Resolution?
I clearly think that there's no basis that I've seen to justify his actions that involved in running the United States Congress. The Trump administration will have an ability to try to convince members of Congress on both sides of the aisle that it was a justified action and ultimately convince the American people. And that will begin tomorrow, and we'll see what happens from there. There's no evidence that I have seen to justify the military strike that took place in the absence of securing congressional approval.
Leader Jeffries, thank you for taking my question. There are some members in your conference that have suggested impeaching President Trump over these Iranian strikes. Impeachment has come up not just from AOC, but other members. Is that a tool on the table for you if you were to take back the House?
I think what's on the tool, a tool that's on the table right now is to continue to demand that the administration present itself before the United States Congress and make the case to the American people as to why this extraordinary step has been taken. That's step one. Step two is for the War Powers Resolution, whether that's the one that has already been introduced or others that may subsequently be introduced, for those resolutions to be debated on the House floor, as should have occurred already. And then we'll see where we're at thereafter.
So you're not taking any calls for impeachment seriously right now?
This is a dangerous moment that we're in, and we've got to get through what's in front of us. And what's in front of us right now is the Trump administration has a responsibility to come to Congress, justify its actions, for which we've seen no evidence to justify its offensive strike in Iran. And we also don't even know how effective the strike has been. There's zero evidence that I've seen that the nuclear program was completely and totally obliterated, as Donald Trump has claimed. No evidence that has been presented to Congress to suggest that that has occurred. Let's see what happens at the classified briefing tomorrow.
Thanks for taking my question, Leader Jeffries. What's your level of concern that this conflict could escalate and other countries, more powerful countries, could get involved?
The approach that was taken by President Barack Obama, which I strongly supported, to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear-capable power, which is a goal that all of us should share, and I do, is aggressive diplomacy. When President Obama entered into discussions to try to secure a nuclear agreement to prevent Iran from becoming capable of developing a nuclear weapon, it was a discussion that involved diplomacy from the United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, Russia, and China, all at the table, entering into an agreement that took Iran's capacity from racing to a nuclear weapon from inside of 3 months, which is where it was at the time, to outside of a year. Everyone agreed that Iran was complying with the agreement that had been reached, which had its flaws, but was working as it had intended to significantly push back Iran's capacity to break out and develop a nuclear weapon. Donald Trump comes into office, and because he's such a hater, particularly as it relates to all things Barack Obama, he pulls out of the agreement, even though Donald Trump's own administration, his own national security apparatus, his own Department of Defense confirmed repeatedly that Iran was adhering to the agreement. When Barack Obama was president and when Donald Trump was president the first time, Donald Trump pulls out and set this whole situation that we're in right now into motion. On Friday, Donald Trump says, we're going to allow for the next 2 weeks to occur so that we can pursue a diplomatic resolution. He lied to the American people, turned around, and without congressional authorization, launched an attack that does risk the possibility of further United States entanglement that will cost us trillions of dollars and thousands of lives if it goes the way of the failed war in Iraq and the challenges that we had over a 20-year period of time in Afghanistan, notwithstanding the fact that our involvement in Afghanistan was clearly justified because we had to take out al-Qaeda and the Taliban who were housing them. These Middle Eastern situations are rough situations. The American people see this clearly, which is why one can't just simply unilaterally decide to potentially entangle us in another conflict. It's the purpose of the constitutional provision, I think, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11. If I'm wrong, someone will point that out immediately. There's a reason for it. And Donald Trump chose to abandon it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. House Republicans, including Derek Van Orden and Byron Donalds, have suggested that the Trump administration was justified in not providing the briefings that you've asked for because the information would be leaked. They say that members would leak to the press and that the Trump administration was correct to keep this information secret. What's your response to these Republicans who say that you all would have leaked the information, classified information, had you received it in the manner that you requested?
The Trump administration can't point to a single example of a Gang of Eight briefing being disclosed to the American people in a manner that would have created harm to the United States of America. I challenge them, point to a single example of a Gang of Eight briefing over the last several administrations resulting in information that was classified becoming public. What is the administration hiding? And by the way, the strike has already occurred. On Saturday, at the highest levels, respectfully request of the White House to provide an immediate Gang of Eight briefing. And it still hasn't happened. This is after the strike has occurred. Come up to Capitol Hill and justify your actions. Justify the fact that you may be taking us to a war that your own people in the MAGA verse don't want. Your own people. And you have a responsibility to explain that to the American people. And so far, they failed to do it, even at the highest levels of congressional leadership.
Throughout the last 20 years, presidents have consistently used sort of unilateral executive authorities to counter strikes like this, including President Biden against the Houthis, President Obama in Libya. What makes this moment different?
The question is, what was the imminent threat to the United States of America? And there's been no evidence to present an imminent threat. Now, if the administration believes that it existed, then they have an opportunity to present that to the American people and to Congress as the elected representatives of the American people. Up until this point, they've not provided any evidence of an imminent threat. The only suggestion has been that we can't allow Iran to become nuclear capable. We agree. That's been a consistent position of Democrats and Republicans for decades. And the question is, what justified this particular action, and was it even successful in completely and totally obliterating Iran's nuclear program, as was represented by Donald Trump to the American people? Did Donald Trump tell the truth? or is he lying again? Last question.
Leader Jeffries, one, have you spoken with other officials back home in New York City about the potential harm that could come to the area with these latest strikes from Iran? And then I also just want to get your thoughts on the latest polling as the New York City mayor race is set to start off.
There's a high degree of concern as it relates to just the climate of political violence that exists, and that's something that we need to decisively deal with here on Capitol Hill. This should not be a Democratic or Republican issue. Every single member of the House and the Senate should be able to do their job free of the threat of political violence to themselves and to their families. And that's going to require the House taking decisive steps in terms of increasing the resources available to keep members of Congress safe so we can actually effectively represent the American people regardless of party affiliation or political ideology. In terms of specific threats, I'm confident that the NYPD, the police commissioner, working with the leadership in New York City and New York State, they're taking appropriate steps to keep everybody safe, particularly areas that are sensitive in terms of the potential to be targets, whether those are houses of worship, synagogues, shuls, mosques, or other affiliated religious institutions during a time of great challenge. In terms of the mayor's race, it's going to be close, it appears. And I've said this is in the hands of the people of New York City, and we'll see what the outcome is. But I think at this moment in time, no one can credibly predict who the winner will be until all votes have been cast.
Last minute endorsement?
I'm going to pass on that one. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. That is Representative Hakeem Jeffries reacting to the U.S.'s strike in Iran over the weekend, and also the news playing out in Qatar. So that, again, wrapping up in Washington, D.C. We want to stay on topic here to the Trump administration, and specifically when it comes to domestic policy, away from what's happening. So we heard from a Charlotte food pantry as it prepares for proposed SNAP cuts when it comes to the big, beautiful bill. I know we've talked about the big, beautiful bill when it comes to Verify. We have folks on to explain it. But again, we talked to a Charlotte nonprofit, a food pantry, about the proposed cuts to SNAP. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and the impact it could have on North Carolinians, not only North Carolinians, but folks here in the Charlotte area. So let's take you to that full interview that WCNC Charlotte's Julie Kay recently did. Again, we're at the top of the hour, so that's my time. I see you at the news at 4 o'clock, but stay with us. Listen to this interview. Vanessa Rufus is coming up after this interview.
To put it very starkly and bluntly, cutting SNAP at the level that the federal government wants to is an apocalypse for hunger, for food security organizations, for food banks and food pantries. The question really is going to be, of course, which version of this bill passes, whether it's the House version or the Senate version. And at least one of the versions, those cuts would be immediate. So it's not a situation where, we have until January, we can try to figure things out. If that version or that language goes in that it's effective immediately, everything changes in an instant.
What does that look like for you guys here at this particular food pantry?
So we right now are running at levels significantly higher than anything we've seen in COVID already. So possible scenarios are going to be that we're going to reach a tipping point where the demand is so great that we don't have enough to serve, that there's going, like right now, we're still able to, for the most part, take everybody that comes to us in need. There is going to come a point where it's going to be too many people for us to handle. We're fortunate because we're a mid-sized organization, even though we're still grassroots. We started out very, very small, and we're moderately well-resourced. We have a lot of needs right now. But the reality is that tipping point is coming. And it's coming not just for us, but for every organization that's food serving, every food bank, and so on and so forth.
And when everyone's dealing with that at the same time, and you guys are all looking for other funding sources at the same time,
Yeah.
what is that domino effect like?
So basically, I mean, it's simple mathematics, right? We're all competing for the same pot of resources that are greatly diminished in between major USDA cuts to food and other programs that support not just food serving nonprofits, but even local farms. So you have that issue, right? You also have the issue of kind of the change in the landscape and the rhetoric around nonprofits that has happened from the inception of DOGE and cutting NGO spending. That has changed the public conversation around charity and around nonprofits. So that has also reduced the amount of resources that are available, you know, to continue to serve. We're a nonprofit. Everything we do is based on donations, whether it's donations of goods that we immediately give out to a family in need, or it's donation of funds that allows us to procure more items. It allows us to literally keep the lights on, and I say that in the most basic sense. You know, we have had points this year, I'll be very honest, where our situation as a nonprofit almost looks the same as a client. They're trying to pay their rent, they're trying to get gas, they're trying to feed their kids. We are trying to keep our lights on and our rent in this facility paid and have enough to be able to serve with and have gas for our delivery truck. The same thing.
So when we talk about donations, and I want to get more into the policy side of it soon,
Yeah.
you mentioned it, what are you looking for people who want to help?
We're looking more so for financial donations. Every single dollar helps. As we all know, food costs have gone up astronomically. That's not just for the consumer, that's for us as food service providers too. The prices you see are the prices we see, and yet we still have to make sure to provide total, you know, grocery packages for the families that we serve. We passed 100,000 served in December. We run about 1,500 to 2,000 people served a month. So it is a serious situation to be able to have as much as we need to be able to distribute. Goods are always welcome. We take non-perishables and perishables. The key to our serving is that we need items that are, oh, I'm so sorry.
Not the baby's neck.
Yeah, we need items that are brand new, unopened package, not expired. That is key. We really want to continue, as always, to serve in a way where our products are complete, you know, grocery ready. We're not, you know, this is not pantry clean out donations, if you will, unfortunately. And there's a place for those too. But for us, we need new items for sure. We need a lot of personal care items. So we're not just a food pantry. We also provide pet food. We provide baby supplies, diapers, formula, and a whole range of personal care products, toothpaste, toothbrushes, and so on. And so we always need those items. Those items are expensive. And, you know, we want to be able to have as much of a selection as possible for those that we serve.
And going back to, we talked about policy a bit, and you're in a unique position where you are on
Yes.
policy council. So
Yes.
what have those discussions been like, and how has it changed over the last few months?
That's a great question. Our conversations have been tough ones. Tough not because, you know, there's any disagreement, but tough more so because of what we're talking about. We're talking about a marked and significant increase in food insecurity and hunger, inability to access food, inability to find supports during crisis. How can we help? How can we, you know, make sure that people have what they need? These are the conversations that we're having constantly, sharing information with our partners, other organizations, colleagues and friends in the space, you know, trying to support everyone. This is also a very emotional situation too. People are scared, and rightfully so. So it's really about trying to create answers. And also for me, and how I look at things, is really maxing out all the resources we have right now, right? Our Food Council runs the SNAP Double Bucks program for the entirety of Mecklenburg County at all of the farmers markets, right? So that program will continue until SNAP is no more. So it's about making sure people know that that's a resource now. Use that resource now. Get out there, double your SNAP dollars at the farmers market, get healthy food, support your local farms. And we're going to use that and keep pushing that until it's done.
To summarize, though, for people, what's going to happen is if this passes, people are going to have a lot harder time getting access to accessible, healthy food.
Yes, absolutely. That's the first and foremost upfront problem, but at the same time, there's also an economic impact that I feel like is not being discussed enough, right? SNAP purchases nationally are about 20 to 30% of all food purchases in the country, right? What happens if those SNAP dollars are removed from our economy? Think about our largest retailer, right? If their revenue is 20% SNAP dollars and that is suddenly removed in an instant, the first thing that they're going to do as a business is constrict. They've got to lay people off to preserve their bottom line. Right or wrong, that's what's going to happen. So now you're going to have a population of folks who are unemployed and there are no resources. That is going to continue to have an exponential and metastasizing effect in our society and in our economy. And I don't know what that looks like. But that is the worst of, I think, what it can be, this two-pronged effect of folks that need can't get, folks that were never affected might suddenly be affected. So now you're increasing the amount of people in need without any safety net or any stopgap.
I know we have less of it here in Charlotte-Mecklenburg area, but something that NCDHHS put in their impact statement was Helene.
Yes.
This is going to have an exponential impact on people in Western North Carolina. I'm curious if you have thoughts on that.
I do. That is 100% true. Part of what this budget reconciliation process, or the verbiage around the bills proposed, is also ancillary cuts to other things that create a situation where SNAP dollar spending or the benefit provided is shifted to the states. In North Carolina, that's a serious issue because so much of our resources are now tied up in trying to rebuild from Helene, rightfully so. So now we face a potential deficit or a hole in funding that needs to go to everybody because things are already shifted here and now you're taking on more expense. So for those who have been working through Helene, who have survived and are trying to rebuild, many of them may be reliant on these exact programs. This is going to set them back to zero. And they've already gone through so much chaos around dealing with FEMA, getting access to their property, all these different things. Add this on, horrible.
That's a really stark picture to paint. I mean, that's exactly what, because we're doing all sorts of just off budget funding stories at the state level, and deciding between a bill or a budget, and I just can't even imagine putting this on top of it. How do you, I'm sure interact with all the people who really need the help. How do you, in the face of all this, keep going? Sorry.
That's the hardest question. I keep going because we have a job to do. We, myself, and all.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us here or sticking with us if you've been with us for a while here on Live Impact News, watching on WCNC+. We have a really special segment coming up here this afternoon, so stick with us throughout the hour. I think this is going to be very enlightening for so many folks. And we are actually going to be talking about what's being described as a pre-escalation device when it comes to law enforcement interactions with the community. And so we wanted to learn more about it here at WCNC Charlotte. So we actually brought in Rowan Sheriff Travis Allen, who we understand the agency is considering this device, or at very least sampling it just to kind of see how it works. We also have Alan Hurley, who's with Tactical Innovations and representing basically the device makers, BolaWrap, because that's what it's called, BolaWrap. And we just wanted to learn more about it. So thanks, y'all, for coming in. We appreciate you taking the time to visit us and have this dialogue.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So let's start off with BolaWrap, and I am going to start with Alan, since people kind of want to get an idea of what this device is all about. And just so you know, I have a prop here. This is the actual wrap that goes around a person, so you can see that. This was the wrap that went around myself because I took a wrap because I wanted to see how the device worked. Alan, describe for folks a quick and dirty, if you will, of what BolaWrap is and what the goal of BolaWrap is.
So the goal of BolaWrap is to be able to take someone into custody or detain someone without using force or pain compliance. So it'll deploy a 7.5-foot Kevlar cable, and it has two real functions that make it successful. One is that 7.5-foot Kevlar cable that wrapped you up. The other, as you've seen, was what we call kind of the startle effect, and it's sight, sound, and sensation. And what we're trying to do is break the OODA loop when someone is in a crisis of any sort or aggravated resistance, giving our officers the best tactical advantage to move in and take that person into custody or detain them.
So we actually have some clips. We mentioned the fact that I took a rap just a few moments ago, and our producer, Jeb, also took a rap. So we just kind of wanted to see firsthand what the device feels like. So we'll go ahead and play those clips right now for our viewers here on Live Impact News to watch. So Jeb, let's go ahead and roll that. We're just going to do a demo here for the Bola Wrap, and I hear that it's going to be maybe a little bit shocking to the system for a few reasons, but should be, of course, not painful. All right, so do you want me to move around? Okay.
Yeah, so are we ready? I'm rolling. Ma'am, I need you to comply. Ma'am, I need to put your hands behind your back. Ma'am.
Please comply, ma'am.
Please, ma'am. Bola, bola, bola.
Any pain?
It was just shocking. So, I mean, you kind of saw my reaction there. It was almost like a delayed reaction where I was just watching my face after hearing, you hear there's a pop, the sound of the deployment, this cable wraps around your legs, and then I kind of stand there and I'm thinking, what just happened? And, to their point, I mean, there was no pain. I guess, Alan, this device here, I mean, we kind of see it from, I guess, a static standpoint where, me as a subject, I'm standing there, I'm not moving. What sort of scenarios can this device be used? Does it make a difference if you're in a tighter space, if the person's moving? I guess, how does that work?
Yeah, great question. So a couple things. So one, the device can be used in a static situation. What an officer would do is it would be working that person, moving around, moving the room, moving them to getting where they can get the best deployment possible. So they can do that. Also, if the person's very combative, they can actually wrap from like the wrist to the elbows, and that way kind of containing someone's arms, and you can wrap the arms and the legs. But people often ask, can you deploy it when somebody's moving away, walking away, or run away? Of course you can. Is it a perfect wrap every time? Well, no, someone's moving, but does it tangle them up and allow them to be able to be detained and slow them down? Absolutely it does. So it works in many of those different situations.
Yeah. And, for full transparency, we did want to point out the fact, I'm wearing sweatpants in the demonstration per your request. You had told me over the phone when we were trying to get a little background on the device, the fact that, for example, if someone is wearing shorts or short sleeve shirts, there is the potential that because there are hooks on the device that it could catch on them, but it's not supposed to be excruciating, I guess, in that sense.
It's not. You could get a small prick about like a Band-Aid. That's possible. A lot of time the cable will hook upon the cable itself, or it'll tether into the clothing. But you could potentially get a small prick if you do have something that requires like a Band-Aid.
And I mean, I asked you this over the phone as well. I thought about, worst case scenario, let's say the officer, for whatever reason, deploys the device higher up into the individual. Is it possible for it to wrap around a person's neck?
Yeah, anything's possible, of course. I mean, that's happened before, and with no injury of any sort.
So it's
not that it may not ever have that, but we've never seen one.
And you were saying that this device is being used by thousands of different agencies around the world.
Yeah, we have about 1,600 agencies in the United States domestically, about 55 agencies, and about 12 universities here in the state of North Carolina, and 64 different countries are using the device.
Wow. Well, we want to bring in Sheriff Travis Allen. Speaking of which, we saw actually this device being tested on your Facebook page. It looks like your agency is considering the Bola Wrap. What about this device, I guess, kind of draws your attention, makes you feel like this is potentially something we want our deputies to have in the field?
Right. I describe it as law enforcement is a job of tools. What can we equip our deputies with, our detention officers with, our school resource officers with, is another tool that we can use. We have all types of tools on our belt, and a lot of those tools are used for lethal force, like tasers, for firearms and batons. But what for that person that's just in a mental crisis? They're being resisted, but they're not really violent. It's another tool that we can use as law enforcement to de-escalate that situation with literally a reduced risk to the individual and a reduced risk to the officer themselves. Again, it's another tool. It doesn't replace the firearm. It doesn't replace the taser. It's used in conjunction with our other tools. That something that is not really considered a use of force and a de-escalation tool. In other words, this tool is used before it gets out of hand. It's used before it becomes to a use of force situation. It's something perfect for that individual that's either having a life mental health crisis or maybe a withdrawal from a narcotics. They're not thinking correctly. They're not thinking right. While they're not being violent, they're just not being cooperative. This is the perfect opportunity to go ahead and use it. You're not waiting for any scenario or any perfect situation. If you've got that person in mental crisis that you know, I've got to take this person to the hospital. They have to get medical treatment. They have to get help. How do I do that without hurting them? How do I do that without hurting myself or another deputy? The BolaWrap is a tool that is possibly an answer to one of those questions.
Now, I mean, as someone who leads an office of more than 200 people, obviously a lot of those being deputies in the field, I guess, can you talk about how that sits on your shoulders in the sense of, someone who has to make that decision about how do I make sure my officers are set up for success? How do I make the community, be set up for success as well in interactions with the officers? I mean, because it is a difficult situation, and we know, for example, with the situation, let's just say George Floyd, I know this device predates George Floyd, but there was a lot of community discussion about, how do officers handle situations? So, I mean, is that something that y'all think about and you talk about within your office about how do we make this the best scenario possible?
I think that's, if you call law enforcement industry, it's industry-wide. First, you take care of your people, then you train your people, and then you have to equip your people. So it's 3 steps. You hire them, you train them, then you have to equip them. You have to give them tools to be able to do their job. If to be a successful sheriff, that's the 3 steps I have to do. I have to support my deputies. I have to equip and train my deputies, and then that's the most important step. I can train you, but if I don't give you the proper tools to do your job, and as technology has changed, the tools are changing. We see a lot in drones, and we see a lot in robotics, and we also see things like this that are really addressing issues that we've not really had tools for. I've been a law enforcement officer for 31 years. I've been in more scuffles than I want to be in. As I get older, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to hurt others, but sometimes it's the nature of the job. So any tool that I can equip my people with and train them with that gives them another option is a win.
So my understanding is this is probably something that you would potentially have to go to county commission if you were interested in to see what kind of budget there is for that, or I guess how would you hope to see this eventually brought onto your force if you needed this?
We're in the middle of our budget, in our budget year, June. Yeah. We really can't purchase things till July, but what we plan on doing is using asset forfeiture money, which is money from drug raids, narcotics raids and things, and put a couple on each patrol squad for a test, for a pilot run, to train some individuals and sit back and kind of watch it be used and deploy it. That's generally how most law enforcement agencies introduce new equipment. It just doesn't all run in at one time and buy 200 BolaWraps. We're going to buy some, put them on each jail squad, put them on each patrol squad through asset forfeiture funding, and watch them be used. And then we'll be able to take that back to our community, back to grants, back to local businesses and say, hey, look what difference this is making in the community. Help us fund the office with it. There's a lot of groups and a lot of individuals that are very supportive of law enforcement. And I believe if we can show not just this product, but any product that helps us, hopefully we, the community, behind us in it.
Well, and you were saying that it was actually the community members who came to your office and said, hey, could you look at this device and maybe do a demo of it and see what you think about it?
Yes, it was. It was a community member, Jamal Black, approached the BolaWrap representative company, and they approached our SOCAT sergeant, which is our crimes warrant service team, for a demonstration, and that was where our video originated from. These same individuals here in the room today came to the sheriff's office and wrapped us out in the parking lot that you saw, and the Facebook video kind of went viral, but I think it's because people recognize how law enforcement's changing every day. And we just can't police the same way we used to anymore. Now, we in Rowan County are still very aggressive. We police very aggressively, but we're not naive to the fact that we have to use tools and we have to change with times as well and make sure our officers are provided with state-of-the-art equipment that, as law enforcement kind of changes, that we keep up with it.
Yeah. I mean, what is your opinion on the device? I mean, other than, from what I understand, you are interested in having it with your office. What strikes you about this device is different or special or something that you need?
To me, it's not the wrap. I think the wrap is a great part of the tool, but it's And we noticed it in your facial expression that you gave. And you knew you were going to get wrapped. You knew what was happening, and yet it was still to you, it broke. If your mind was maybe in a mental crisis, or you in what they would call that OODA loop, and you can't, those people in mental crisis sometimes are fixated on one thing, and they can't break that chain of thought. That rap itself, just hearing the noise, feeling the pressure of the rap, is enough to give the officers that brief 2 or 3 seconds to get to the person and can secure them before they realize what's happening. Because in your mind, you could possibly thinking, did I just get shot? I heard a noise, I felt something, I don't know what that was, and by then we've already handcuffed you. And so even if the wrap fails to totally wrap you up, it still can provide the officers that 2 or 3 seconds they need to get there and make that apprehension.
Yeah. And Alan, you were mentioning the fact that you could potentially wrap multiple times to a single person just by nature of the fact that this isn't supposed to be pain compliance and it's supposed to be non-lethal.
Yeah, that's right. So if you had someone that was ready to fight, they're very combative, you could wrap them from the wrist or elbows. You could wrap them twice up high. You could wrap them twice down low. There's no limit to how many times you can wrap someone because it doesn't enact pain. You're just trying to give the best tactical advantage, safest way to take that person into custody or detain them. So if someone had a stick in their hand, you may decide to wrap their upper arms. If they have a gun or a knife, the bowler wrap wouldn't be the device that you're going to use in that situation. But you can definitely deploy the bowler wrap multiple times on someone to be able to detain them.
It's a really interesting concept. Sheriff Allen, if I could get you to talk about, what you've heard from your men and women in the field, about what challenges they might be facing, specifically as it might pertain to this device, how you think that this could solve some of those challenges.
Right. A big thing in law enforcement nationwide is how do we combat the opioid crisis? How do we combat mental illness, those in mental crisis? So we're constantly looking for tools to meet the needs in that area. I think that is one of the reasons that the video was very popular on Facebook, because people are interested and citizens are interested in what are we doing to help those in mental crisis? How are we serving that community? Because the Rowan County in Salisbury has a very large VA hospital there. So we have a lot of ex-military individuals. We have a lot of people that possibly could be in a mental crisis coming there for mental health treatments and things. And we have other large medical facilities, just like in the Charlotte area. There's a large need for mental health avenues. And this is a area for law enforcement to be able to step into and say, hey, listen, we have ways of de-escalating this crisis before it becomes violent, before it becomes a use of force situation. So there's been a lot of asking around the office, when are we getting these? Are we going to get these? So the deputies are really starting to ask those questions. So, and we've told them, we want to implement a few at a time and see how it works to get some wraps and do some training on it, because there's always the aspect of very thorough training before you implement any tool. It's just not give them a tool, go use it. We're going to train you if you have one. We're even going to train you if you don't have one. So you know what's happening and you know what to do and what to respond to when someone gets wrapped. Because we noticed you were wrapped, but myself and another individual came from the side and acted like we were going to apprehend you. So not only does the individual using the bowler wrap need to know what's going on, everybody on the scene needs to understand what's happening. So there's a lot of training to put in the front of something like this.
Yeah. We want to bring in now, we have a retired Chief Henry King, who you've retired from Eatonton Police, but you were the first agency, I understand, in North Carolina to deploy this device to your officers. What went into that decision?
So one day I was conversating with my classmates that I graduated from Boston University at SMIP, Senior Management Institute for Police. And we were discussing about this Batman device. So I asked my classmate to send me the information. Once he sent me the information, I contacted the North Carolina Justice Academy to ask could they hold a demonstration here in North Carolina, because they oversee all our training in North Carolina. So once that was done, I brought bowler wrap to Eatonton because I wanted to make sure I had buy-in from my citizens, just like Sheriff Allen. So when they came to Eatonton, I took them to Chowan Invited Hospital and did a demonstration for my nurses there. They loved it. And then from there, we took the show on the road to Rotary. And we all know that Rotary is a lot of business owners, who's, and my community fell in love with it. If you understand Eatonton is a bedroom community, a waterfront community with a lot of retirees there. So You know, I don't want my officers tasing a 70-year-old retired veteran that's going through PTSD or mental crisis. So this tool was absolutely the best tool available for my officers to use against someone and loved ones. And I love the fact that BolaWrap has designed this tool because this is what law enforcement needs.
So how long ago did you bring that device on?
2019.
2019. Okay, so it's been in place for a few years at
Yes,
this
ma'am.
point. What was the feedback from your officers when they actually, if they had to use it?
Oh, that my officers loved it, and it really decreased the use of force. So earlier you alluded to, you asked Alan a question about the use of force, and I can tell you that I was proudly able to go to my council and let them know that we had 5 use of forces this year. However, we had 15 force avoidance. We call force avoidance. That word allowed my council and citizens to know that we could have used force 15 times, but we deployed the BolaWrap. So it lets my citizens know we utilize this tool to alleviate from having to go hands-on, to tase someone, to hit someone, spray someone with OC. We utilize this tool to take them into custody. Therefore, no one got hurt and officers got hurt. And it's a win-win. It established a relationship. Mothers and fathers knew that their child was going through a mental crisis and they wanted help from the police, but they didn't want their child to get hurt.
I mean, other than just avoiding, the potential use of force, how do you feel like this impacted your office in the sense of how the community viewed your officers whenever they did have to show up to a situation?
It helped bridge the gap because I tell folks all the time that force is not pretty. So when you call us for law enforcement to come help and we have to take someone into custody, it's not going to be pretty when we use OC because your eyes are running, your skin is burning, or if you're tased. So here's a tool that allowed us to take you into custody and your loved ones understand and be grateful that you utilize the BolaWrap versus any other tool that's out there. And as a parent myself, I would love, if my child would have to be force used against them, I would love for it to be the pre-escalation BolaWrap because I know what the taser feels like firsthand being a police officer. I know what OC feels like by being sprayed by OC, and I don't never want to feel like what a firearms feel like because I don't want to be shot. But it's a thing to where this tool allows you to take care of loved ones, and it bridges the gap from mothers and parents that understand that.
Yeah, I alluded to this before, the fact that there has been a lot of dialogue about, law enforcement and how could they more, for a better outcome, interface with the public in certain situations. How do you hope that develops, that conversation? We'll start with you, Mr. King.
Well, one of the things that I'm hoping that the community hears this and understands, I want the community to ask their chiefs and sheriffs, why don't you have the BolaWrap? Have you looked at the BolaWrap? I want to go out in the communities and talk about the BolaWrap, deploy it on clergy, deploy it on the nurses at the hospitals. Because guess what? When you have someone that's come to the hospital and they're under the influence of some of these strong drugs that we have in America, these nurses want to make sure that there's something out there that can keep them safe as well as the patient safe. Because we know that the individuals are not in their right mind. So we don't want to have to do what I call the dog pile on trying to get someone in handcuffs when we have this tool that can get them into custody safely. So I think the community needs to hold their county commissioners and city council accountable for ensuring that law enforcement has the necessary tools so that way it's not dividing us. There's so many scenarios where as a police chief, as a retired police chief, I can show the community that we tried to BolaWrap them. That didn't work. We tried to tase them. That didn't work. So we had to go to something higher. But if you don't have those tools and you automatically have to go to a higher, then everyone is upset. So why not give like the sheriff said, train them, and then equip them with what they need to get the job done.
Yeah, and Sheriff, I'll kind of ask you a similar question. How do you hope the dialogue around the community and law enforcement develops going forward, in the sense of moving towards a place where folks are there's more of a consensus of law
Right.
enforcement is here to help, and this is going to be a
It's understanding the role of law enforcement. Like the chief said, it's often a very unpleasant job. And I'm not going to sit here and be naive to the fact that often we have to use force. We have to use force necessary to make the arrest. And often we have to use deadly force. I'm never going to ask my deputies to come to work and put themselves in danger. The BolaWrap's a tool. It's another tool on the tool belt that you can use. It doesn't replace the taser. It doesn't replace the firearm. There's many situations that the BolaWrap is not applicable for, that it would not be your first choice. But in those nonviolent situations where you're dealing with somebody in mental crisis, You have to have tools that you can do to de-escalate before escalation even starts, to go ahead and immediately take that situation under control. And this is a tool that could possibly use before it gets to those other levels. Again, we're in Rowan County. I support my deputies. I understand that they have to use force. They have to use force necessary and reasonable, and I support them in the avenues of that use of force. It's a very dangerous job, and our goal is to each of us to go home every night at the end of that shift, but it's also our goal to treat our citizens well and to take care of them well. So any tool that we add to our tool belt that helps us accomplish that, I think it shows the citizens of your community, listen, they understand. They understand my family, they understand the situations people are going through, and they're taking the training and they're providing the tools to effectively enforce the law as safely as possible.
Yeah.
And I want to just leave with the citizens, you know, with the BolaWrap 150 and law enforcement, we want to hold our citizens accountable. And I tell citizens all the time to utilize what I call the 4 C's. We want our citizens to cooperate. Cooperate doesn't mean that you give up your rights, but cooperate. Be courteous, comply. And then if you feel like that you have been mistreated from law enforcement, complain. Because when you complain, as a chief, it lets me know how my officers are responding to the training that they're receiving. So what does that look like? That looks like, okay, do I need to retrain my officer? Do I need to terminate my officer? Do I need to discipline my officer? Is the training that they're receiving working? So, you know, if citizens would just utilize those 4 C's, it also would help bridge the gap as well.
Yeah. Really interesting conversation, gentlemen. I know, Alan, we moved you out of the secondary spot. Is there anything you wanted to come back and weigh in with before we wrap things up here? And come over to the mic, too, if there is something that you want to add. But yeah, folks, we'll just remind you here on Live Impact News as Alan Hurley's getting settled in here once again, we are looking at this device, which is being called a pre-escalation device called BolaWrap, which is being considered by Rowan County Sheriff's Office. And we tested it out, and it's basically a big wrap that wraps around you quickly. There are some hooks here that help kind of keep the device secured once the wrap gets around your body, presumably your legs, but also we're hearing your arms and such. But I mean, I'm really glad that we got to do the demo on it, because it's you know, a device that I could see, you know, with the potential, you know, to really change the game. So, Alan, is there anything that you want to add about this?
No, I just say it truly does the things that these gentlemen have talked about. We've seen it firsthand. We've interviewed officers that have used it. We've talked to people that have been detained by it, and it truly is leading through like a lens of empathy. You have to use force when it's necessary. When it's not, BolaWrap gives you an alternative to do that, and to do it early and often typically is safer for the individual you're trying to detain, and it's safer for the officer. So we call that in the pre-escalation phase of an incident or in front of someone. So I think that absolutely helps the community, helps them understand that the law enforcement is trying to do the right thing, and they're trying to help the community, and it helps those people that are in crisis.
Sheriff Allen, anything you want to leave us with before we wrap things up?
No, just thank you for the opportunity to come talk to the community about it. Thank you for BolaWrap, the representatives being here. They travel from a long ways off, but this is I reach out to maybe some citizens of Rowan County that are watching this, and they want to help. You know, we all rely on funding. The BolaWrap is very affordable, but when you have 208 employees, that can be quite compelling in your budget. So, you know, for the community, if there's any organizations that want to get behind this, we would love to talk to you.
Very, very interesting dialogue. And okay, you heard it there, folks. We'll continue to follow, you know, how this device, you know, goes as it presumably continues to be deployed in different agencies and different communities. But like we said, it's seemingly kind of trickling through various agencies, not just law enforcement. It sounds like school campuses, and it sounded like Chief King, you mentioned the fact that some nurses have been trained to use it, maybe in hospital situations or otherwise. But we hope that you found this an illuminating discussion here on Live Impact News. We're going to wrap things up with the BolaWrap folks here. Thank you again, gentlemen, everyone, for coming in here and visiting us to have the discussion. We're going to turn you over just for a little bit here to listen into the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies. So they're looking at the fiscal year 2026 budget with some requests from Attorney General Pam Bondi. Let's listen in right now.
Continue to flow to my district, and in light of the HIDA. I'm in Northwest Indiana, Gary, Indiana. We are a HIDA district. where we have the Chicago traffic. That's vitally important to my district. I just need commitments that that funding will continue to be going forward and that our agencies will have that support.
Congressman, thank you for bringing that up. I'm well aware of the HIDA. I believe that's in Maryville. Is that correct?
You are correct.
And yes, that funding will remain where it is. We do not intend on touching that funding. We want to protect HIDA.
Very good. So in light of the escalation with Iran, part of our cybersecurity and our infrastructure when it comes to our electric grid, our banking systems, that is a new threat. Does this budget reflect increasing our cybersecurity protections, and how is the Department of Justice going to protect our infrastructure when it comes to bad actors such as Iran coming directly at our infrastructure in a cyber attack?
Yeah, we have $50 million for cybersecurity, and also in the one big...
With an M, 50 million?
50 million, yeah,
Okay.
but also in the one big beautiful bill, it is also addressed to give us more resources. And you know, it's not only
Can I
Iran, as you well know, it's China as well. But
Right.
yes, I wholeheartedly agree with
In
you.
the reconciliation, tomato, in the reconciliation bill, can you tell me what more resources are going to go towards cybersecurity? Because I was under the impression that was decreased.
Can I get you, I will get you those numbers.
Okay. Yes.
I want to do everything I can to help you protect cybersecurity, all of us in this country, not only again with Iran, but also with China and all of our foreign adversaries around the world.
Okay. And then just a question of curiosity that I have. Director Patel was here a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about the emails that went to the FBI agents, meaning, please tell us what you did at the end of the week. Give us 5 reasons why you did. At first, Director Patel said that that didn't exist. Then he specifically said, well, that came from the Department of Justice to the FBI agents, and his words, I told them not to fulfill that obligation. How do you manage that if you give a directive to your Director of FBI and he chooses not to fulfill that? And where did that information go? So when someone from the FBI, an agent, fulfilled that obligation of giving you the information of what they were working on, where did that data go and how is it secured?
Yeah, and Congressman, I'd be happy to see who answered that, but I asked, when I learned about it, I asked that it be withdrawn, and it was, that email.
When you learned about the email going to the FBI agents, you asked them to withdraw it. Who did you ask to have it withdrawn?
My entire office, and it was.
So it is unknown who sent that email?
Well, it came from my office, but when I learned it went to the FBI, we asked that it be withdrawn.
Where is the gap of my understanding? If it came from your office, you're telling me you didn't send it?
I didn't realize it went to the FBI. That email went out.
So-
And the purpose of that email was to make sure, just so you know, it was to make sure that these people were sitting at their desk and working and alive, that there were people actually
Okay, and
responding.
I
It
agree.
could have been, I got up and got a cup of coffee.
Sure.
That
So
was
without
the
going into
purpose.
that, the people that did answer it, where did that data go?
I will find out and I will get you that information.
And I only ask as a national security issue as
Absolutely.
they're working on sensitive issues. And I thank you for joining us, and I yield back my time.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. That concludes today's hearing. I want to thank our witness, Attorney General Bundy, for being here today. We would normally like to do another round of questions, but we don't have time. The gentlelady, the Attorney General, has meetings scheduled, I think, at 4 o'clock.
Thank you.
So we will not be able to do a second round because of that.
Ready to answer the question.
So without objection, members may have 7 days to submit additional questions for the record. Subcommittee stands adjourned.
All right, folks, you were listening in there once again to the subcommittee discussing fiscal year 2026. This is the Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies hearing in part from a request with Attorney General Pam Bondi on some funding for the upcoming fiscal year. We want to turn now to weather updates because we've been talking about the fact that it's just been exceedingly hot. And of course, you know, if you're out and about at any point for any duration of time over the weekend, you knew that was the case. And unfortunately, we're going to see, in some cases, dangerous heat continue for the next several days. So with that, we want to turn now to a weather update from meteorologist Majestic Storm on what folks can expect, not just over the course of the day, but also the next several days, so you can plan out all of those weather impacts and how to best handle that. So with that, let's turn you over to this update.
Well, good Monday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm, and today is a weather alert day. Not just today, but we'll be under a weather alert through Thursday because of the return of dangerous heat and humidity. At times, it's going to feel well over 100 degrees for multiple days in a row, and we're not even really cooling down a whole lot overnight to allow for some of that relief. Tomorrow, our air temperatures could even reach 100 degrees. That's even before you add in the humidity. And then taking a look ahead, we are tracking the possibility of seeing some showers and thunderstorms by the middle end to our work week. That does include even some stronger storms at times. Yesterday, we topped off at 95 degrees. Boy, it was cranking hot. And today, we're forecasting 98, so getting even hotter. If you work out in the elements, make sure you're really taking breaks from that heat and humidity, staying plenty hydrated. Temperatures all across the area ranging into the mid to upper 90s. A little bit cooler for the mountains, but not by a whole lot. About 97 in Statesville, 98 is what we're forecasting here in Charlotte. And notice we'll have plenty of sunshine all throughout the day. It's going to be an absolutely gorgeous day. And if you love the heat and humidity, well, you'll love the forecast for the next several days ahead. But just make sure you are being careful because it can be a little tricky at times. All of a sudden you feel fine, you're loving the weather, and then it gets very hot and you might get very tired and fatigued because of this heat and humidity. Now, over the next several hours, this is what it's going to feel like. We could reach up to 102 by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 103 by 5 o'clock, so even around dinner time, it's going to feel like we're into the triple digits. So in addition to that, we're going to really be talking about heat index values over the next several days. That's a combination of our air temperature plus the humidity and what it's going to feel like. So around 4 p.m. today, it'll be 97 degrees, but once you add in the humidity, about 103 degrees. So if you do have any outdoor pets, really make sure they're taken care of. That means making sure they have plenty of shade, lots of fresh, clean water. We need to make sure they're really ready for this as well, because if it's hot for us, it's hot for them as well. Here's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, feeling like we're into the triple digits for many. Again, Tuesday getting even hotter. Tuesday could be the worst conditions when it comes to how hot it's going to feel. Look at Wadesboro, 107, Sherrod, 107 there, 104 out towards Monroe, and then this will continue into Wednesday as well, even Thursday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all WCNC weather alert days because of this heat and humidity. Now here's the next 3 days. These are just our air temperatures. Upper 90s today. We're forecasting 100 degrees tomorrow, and then on Wednesday, notice, yeah, it's still going to be hot, but then we're looking at the return of showers and thunderstorms. There's our next 10 days as we're continuing with the temperature, so gradually getting warmer and warmer, and then by Friday and into this upcoming weekend, we'll still be well into the lower end of the 90s, but a little closer to where we should be for this time of the year. As far as the rain showers go, it's not looking likely today or tomorrow. By Wednesday, we should start to see some rain showers move back into our area and some thunderstorms as well. So if you have a yard, if you have a garden, flowers, make sure they're all watered very well up until that point. Rain showers, again, this is early on Wednesday. Not seeing much shower activity. It's mainly going to be Wednesday afternoon and into our Wednesday evening that that we could see a passing thunderstorm, some rain showers, and that's when we could see an isolated strong to even severe thunderstorm. All right, weather alert. We have 4 days in a row of it because of how hot and humid it's going to be. And really, again, because it's multiple days in a row where we are not seeing a lot of relief in between, we're concerned that people may have some issues when it comes to this. So make sure you stay close to our weather team. We'll keep you up to date. Stay safe and have a great day.
And there you have it. Don't forget, our weather impact team will be keeping us up to date on all that we know, of course, throughout the evening. And as the forecast kind of develops, and maybe sometimes we even see it fluctuating or changing, they will let us know. So you'll want to keep it here. In just a few moments, actually, we'll be turning it over to the 4 o'clock news. So we'll be getting many more updates to come as we go on throughout our evening newscasts. We're going to turn now to the Senate floor. We've got some discussions underway. It sounds like this is a specific bill that is being discussed. Regarding here, Human Cell and Tissue Product Safety Act. That is the name of the legislation. Sandra Isenga, Human Cell and Tissue Product Safety Act. We'll listen now, and of course, anything big and breaking, we'll jump back in here on Live Impact News.
I yield back.
Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield now again to the gentlewoman from Michigan, Ms. Dingell, for such time as she may consume.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to share my strong support of H.R. 1082, the Chandra Sangha Human Cell and Tissue Product Safety Act. And I am very proud to lead this bill with my good friend and colleague from Michigan, Representative John Molinar, both of us who have been very personally involved with the family and learning of where there are serious deficiencies within our government. In the summer of 2023, I was contacted by the medical director of the Washtenaw County Tuberculosis Clinic and head of public health, who was treating Chandra for a severe post-surgical tuberculosis infection. She was Representative Molinar's constituent, but was being treated at a medical facility in my district. And after a month battling a severe TB infection in the intensive care unit, Chandra unfortunately died. Since Chandra's passing, it's been discovered that her death was indeed linked to contaminated bone graft material. She was one of 36 patients who received material from the contaminated lot, and this latest outbreak is linked to the deaths of 2 patients, including Chandra. It had been preceded 2 years before by an outbreak, again linked to contaminated bone allografts, and it resulted in multiple deaths. The outbreak then affected 113 patients across 18 states, and it led to at least 3 confirmed TB-related deaths, with some sources citing a total of 8 deaths. This has to stop. And too many people get bone grafts and have no idea, including the doctor that did a bone graft on me, that they even needed to worry about this. This bill requires the Department of Health and Human Services to conduct research and education campaigns to prevent TB outbreaks caused by contaminated human cell and tissue product donations. Through the markup process, we've also included an important provision to allow the federal government to pursue civil penalties from providers who caused an outbreak of the infectious disease. Patients deserve to know the risks associated with tissue donations, and companies that make and distribute contaminated products must be held accountable for their actions. I thank the Energy and Commerce Committee, Chair Guthrie, my dear friend Mr. Bilirakis, and Ranking Member Pallone for fighting for this important piece of legislation. And again, I want to thank Rep. Molinar for being such a great bipartisan partner. We owe it to Chandra, her family, and every other patient who's been affected by contaminated bone grafts to ensure we're doing everything we can to prevent these unnecessary tragedies from ever happening again. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this important bill, and I yield back the remainder of my time.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Reserve.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
You're prepared to close?
I am prepared to close. I had no additional speakers.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would urge support for this important legislation on a bipartisan basis. Yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Florida is
Thank you,
recognized.
Mr. Speaker. In closing, I encourage a yes vote on this particular piece of legislation, and I'll yield back the balance of my time as well.
Gentleman yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1082? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
All right, it sounded like that bill passed through with those Senate discussions there. We'll just remind you once again, this is the Chandra Isenga Human Cell and Tissue Product Safety Act. It requires federal agencies to update guidance, regulations, and educational materials about transplants involving human cell and tissue products, specifically as it pertains to safety and eligibility standards. We're going to turn now back to the heat discussion because we not only are dealing with heat, we're going to be dealing with potential impacts to our wallets because it's going to cost more potentially to keep everything cool inside your home or your office, wherever you are going to be spending your time. So let's check in now with some advice that we got from Duke Energy regarding keeping that bill as low as possible as we are all sweltering in the summer heat. This is an earlier sit down with our Nick Sturdivant.
I want to bring in live here on Live Impact News, Caroline Fountain with Duke Energy. She heard what I said. She started laughing. Look, you guys you guys do fantastic work, especially the crews out there in the field. But how can folks, and you're talking about saving money and saving energy. We'll start here. I talked about my bill. You don't want to see that. How can folks save some money when it comes to this heat and when it comes to using that AC properly?
Well, for sure. Well, you know, today is the perfect day to talk about it. It's the first day of summer. And just like you said, we are going to be seeing some high temperatures heading our way very soon, this weekend into next week. And so essentially, this is the time, right, in order to take advantage of a couple of quick and easy tips that actually people can do right now as they're watching. So the number one that we recommend is turning your thermostat to the highest comfortable setting. So the tundra, I'm not sure about that, but setting that to the highest comfortable temperature for your own family, right? And then second, really using those ceiling fans. That's actually going to make it feel up to 4 degrees cooler. So you'll be able to kind of play and adjust with your thermostat there. And then, also for me, I don't have any trees around my home. So closing those blinds, closing those curtains will really help keep the cool air in and the hot air out, especially as the sun is beating down in the afternoon sun.
As you were saying that, I can control it through an app on my phone. I just bumped up. It was on 68.
Yeah, tell us. Where do you have it at?
It was on 68. And so I bumped it up to about 72. I just want to, before I get to my next question, is that good?
Well, it's really up to your own family's personal comfort settings. However, I love that you just mentioned that you're using that through your app. You've obviously got a smart thermostat, and that's a real huge benefit for folks. I'll just do a quick plug here for the things that I have here next to me. So any Duke Energy, customer who's a homeowner, you can get a free home energy assessment. So an energy advisor can come to your home and, see what opportunities you have in your particular home to save energy, which translates into savings on your bill. And then you'll also get this free kit, which is great. You got caulking, you got weather stripping, you got, this charging thing. You got a couple of great ways to save on, energy efficient water use. And so, with that, if you are interested in a smart thermostat, they will actually install that free of charge for you during the assessment. So it's a great way, like you said, when you're away from home, just crank it up a couple degrees. And then, on your way home, you can turn it back down and then it's comfortable from when you're home.
Some great advice there. So we talk about saving money, that's important, but why is it important to save energy?
Yeah, well, you pay for what you use, right? And so when you're using more energy, especially during the summer, you got to think, even if you're keeping your settings to the same degree, well, guess what? The hotter it gets outside, the harder your AC unit is going to be working. And so if you want to be having larger savings on your bill, that translates into saving more energy at home. And that can be, caulking your windows. It can be using, weather stripping for your doors. If you see a little bit of light through your door, well, guess what? You probably need a little bit of weather stripping there. Like I said, closing those blinds, using those ceiling fans.
It's Caroline Fountain with Duke Energy. Caroline, can you talk about some of the financial assistance programs? Because there are some folks that they're struggling to pay their bills.
Yeah, so we have a lot of different ways that we can help customers in need. So one, you can sign up for a payment installment plan. So that's, something you can do. Also, we partner with community agencies. So for, low income home energy assistance program, so you can apply for assistance through that. We have Duke Energy's Share the Light Fund you can apply for as well. And actually, we have a brand new tool that went live this month on our website under the Special Assistance tab, where you can actually look up your local agency by just your zip code. And those are agencies that have recently partnered with us in order to help those customers in need. So great new tool to check out.
One more question before I let you go, so you can enjoy your Friday, enjoy your weekend. What is it like for crews out in the field who work in the heat, but they're also making sure folks are comfortable at home?
For sure. So as you can imagine, safety is our number one priority. So making sure that our crews are properly prepared as they head out into the field, plenty of water, taking plenty of breaks. But we also know that it's, a priority to get electricity reliably to our customers. So it's really, making that service as well as keeping our crews safe.
All right. So there you have it, folks. Hopefully that is some helpful information for you as you not only try to stay cool, but also protect that wallet a bit from the impacts of having to cool that house. So we wanted to take a few moments here on Live Impact News before we turn you over to our 4 o'clock newscast to let you know of some special coverage coming up later this week. So we've got the NBA draft. Our team has been tirelessly getting prepared for all of the coverage that you'll need for the NBA draft. This will be a special that will kick off here on WCNC Plus Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can see